This is The Drive with Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. SNR, Steelers Nation Radio.
And we are back at the NFL Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis on Fox Sports Pittsburgh and Steelers Nation Radio here on the Steelers Audio Network. I'm Dale Lolley. He is Matt Williamson, and we're joined, of course, by Max Starks as we were yesterday. It's a great Combine crew here. We'll have the next 3 hours of coverage here for you. Cut me, Mick, by about hour 4. I'm going to be barely hanging on here as Apollo pounds away at us, but we'll be all right. So the defensive lineman talk today, we've had a lot of defensive line talk. And one of the conundrums in this particular draft, guys, is Shamar Turner.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Look, you talk about look like Tarzan. I'm not saying he plays like Jane, but where's the production?
But I think the biggest thing is the scheme that they ran.
It makes me wonder about that because we were
all
talking about
three
the
of them
Marvin
aren't
Leal.
productive.
No.
Right. Like, because I know, like, Stewart's up as well. He's one of the other guys. Another Shamar.
Two Shamars and then the Scourton.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, but Texas A&M, and this has been my problem with Texas A&M the last 3 years, because I've had their annual tryst, as I like to call it, at AT&T at Jerry's World, right? Because Jerry's an Arkansas alum, and he loves having the Texas A&M Arkansas game, the old what was it, the old Big 8 conference, reunion type of game of those schools, and I watched him because. You have to remember, they had the #1 recruiting class 2 years in a row, right? And these were Jimbo guys. And the production never matched the skill set. Like, you look at the measures, it's like, these guys are all like Monstars when they walk out. And then you watch them play, and it's disjointed. Like, the scheme never quite fit their capabilities. Yeah. And I felt like the guys were playing out of position when you'd watch them play.
Yeah.
And even one year, they lost to KJ Jefferson in Arkansas there. And you're like, how
that shouldn't have happened. Yeah.
That should not have happened. Not with the skill set that they have. And listen, KJ Jefferson was a decent quarterback. He's not great, but he wasn't lighting you up like that. And all of you are bigger than KJ Jefferson. You know what I'm saying? So, Texas A&M defensive linemen have always been a conundrum. And I hate to say that because we have one on our team, but they don't play up to their capabilities, and I think that's what kind of ruins it for me. And I'm at odds. I don't like Turner. I don't like Stewart and Scourton, to even fit in schemes, because I'm like, you're going to have to teach them. So they're automatically projects. And do I want a project in the first or second round? No, I need a ready-made guy ready to rock and roll. And so they look the part. They're going to test great because they have all those measures. But when it comes to scheming, you watch what looks on the field with these times and measurables versus what they actually do. They don't give me the warm and fuzzy feelings.
For a lot of years, we've seen that out of some of the Michigan guys.
Yeah.
They test really well, and they're
Sean
highly,
Gary,
they're highly thought of, and then you look at the production, and he had 4 career sacks in college. Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, I was like, wait a second, who are you playing? I was like, I know you had Indiana on the roster. I know you had, like, Rutgers. I'm like, you didn't get any there? Yeah.
Or
that's where
Penn
they did
State,
get their one. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So it's what you weren't playing. And in the SEC, like, there are good teams in the SEC, but this year, everybody was kind of like everybody was in the good category. There was a lot of guys in the good. There was none of the elites. There wasn't the Georgias of old. There wasn't the Alabamas of old that you would see like, oh, my God, these guys are by far and away the best team, and they're just going to win pencil them in as the national champs. Everybody was kind of good. So there was room for Texas A&M to grow, and Texas A&M
didn't happen.
Fell short with Mike Elko and them down there. They didn't quite get into a rhythm at all. So that's the thing. But I've also seen these guys in previous years, right? I saw them when they were still with Jimbo, and they were all freshmen starting on the – you started as a freshman.
Yeah.
You should have some numbers.
Oh, yeah.
And no numbers to even speak of.
And Leal's guilty of that as well. I mean, he was a highly recruited guy, and he's a little bit of a tweener too. And a lot of these guys are kind of tweener types. And, like, I like Scourton's game. He's a big physical, probably base end. But at Purdue, he was better. He was more productive, and he was lighter. He added like 20 pounds at A&M, and just doesn't explode off the ball like he did 2 years ago. And I'm fine drafting traits on the D-line. It's a very Eagles thing to do.
Yeah.
Bring them along slow. These guys are super explosive, long, whatever. But not in the first round.
Not in the first round.
That's a thing.
Milton Williams was not a first-round pick. He's a
Right,
fourth-round
right.
pick, but
Yeah.
he had the traits.
He had the traits that you want. And
Swag,
it's fine to go get traits later.
Right.
But like I said, the top 2
when
rounds.
you got the starters already set.
And he was coming in and he was going to be a fill-in guy. Like you already had Jordan Davis, who was a mountain of a human being, right? You know what I'm saying? Like you went and you drafted the size, and then you let Milton, hey, you're the change-up guy. It's fine. And for Shamar, just because we're on Shamar Turner, I went and pulled up his stats. The only thing that I saw that was like, in that realm is you look at this year, 36 tackles. This is only highlight.
Mm-hmm.
36
and Stewart's the one that has nothing.
Nothing. I don't even want to pull his stuff out.
I get the Shamars mixed up once in a while, but
yeah, exactly.
Stewart's the one that's highly touted, better athlete, less production.
And they have him slated to go in the first round. They have him going to a couple of teams, but they have him high.
Especially if he really blows up this week, which he probably will.
He probably will. He'll test great, but like you said, there's no tangible production.
Right.
And so I get that because even when the Saints took Marcus Davenport from UTSA, right, he had stats.
Yeah.
He had like 14 sacks.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, but he came from UTSA. It's Conference USA, a smaller school. But he had numbers that you could justify it. Stewart doesn't have any numbers to justify. And so that's where we say this is an inexact science, right? And you could find stats to fall in love with anybody. That's what the combine's for, is to justify for or against a guy in their production.
I'm not even sure where you line Stewart up every down. I mean, like, maybe he can do several or none. I mean, he's not really a 4-3 Nick Bosa, explode off the ball, beat you on the edge type guy. And do I trust him to hold up interior at all? I don't think he definitely doesn't project like a 3-4 end.
No, he does not. He's not a two-gapper.
No.
He's a blow up the field, and he's a space eater.
Mm-hmm.
And
the length is great.
the length is great if you're trying to tip a pass. I'm like, because he's not getting close enough to the quarterback to sack him.
Yeah. And even like it's great for tackle radius and all those things too, but he doesn't recognize that stuff particularly well. He doesn't read plays particularly well.
And he's not a hand striker. He's a movement guy in space. Like he wants to do the razzle dazzle on the edge. He's not trying to like just blow your face off. He's not coming with a power bull rush. Which is what, like you said, like a Bosa, like they're going to hit you with a long arm stab, and they have that capability. I don't think he knows that he has that capability. I don't think he knows how long his arms are.
And will he ever? Who knows?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the thing. Again, if you're taking that in the first round, it's Bud Dupree.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember watching Bud Dupree tape, and I'm like, I'm trying to like this guy, and I see there's talent there, and he obviously tested really well. But then every time I turn the tape on, he's engaged, and the ball's going by him, and then all of a sudden he reacts. Oh, the ball's back there.
Well, Jarvis Jones, another one. Now he had production in college, but it didn't translate to the pro level, and he just flamed out
because athletically he wasn't there. And I think the Steelers overcompensated with Bud. Like, okay, this didn't work. We took the guy who wasn't the athlete but had the production.
But he had sacks
now
in Georgia,
now let's take the guy who's the athlete, and we're going to try to make him. And by the end of his career with the Steelers, he finally turned into something.
Better, right?
But
stopped running past the quarterback. And,
it took him 3 years to get there.
Yeah, and you don't have that time.
You don't have that time.
You don't have that luxury. So
Less
you need
than
somebody
ever.
who's ready. And we're also, now that we're shifting focus interior, I don't want a project interior guy because the leader or teacher that I'm going to have in Cam Hayward ain't going to be around long enough to see you actually meet fruition if I got to teach him. And he doesn't have time because he's worried about himself, trying to keep himself healthy. He's not, he'll bring a guy along and push, but he's not going to teach. And that's where I think with either one of these guys from Texas, you're going to have to teach them. And it's going to take time. And they need to sit behind starters. You know what I'm saying? Like if they go to Philly and you have a chance to learn, great. Because it's like we got starters we can put in front of you. But if you're drafting first round, second round, I plan on inserting you immediately. Like you're either a third down type of guy and you work your way up into a starting rotational role.
Yeah, you're going to get in some packages, and then we'll see where it goes.
And Carl Dunbar loves to rotate 6 to 7 guys in a game. So if you can't make that top 6 to 7 rotation early, why do we have you? We can
Which is kind of where Leal's at right now.
Yeah, Leal is because
sort of in limbo.
I felt like Leal was going to make the jump this year, and then he got injured because he came in.
He was flashing.
He looked good as far as physically. And I sat there and I talked to him at the lunchroom, and you could see, like, DeMarvin was very careful about how he ate. He's like, man, this is what I need to do. I'm trying to keep myself healthy. Worrying about weight and, whether they're trying to make me fluctuate or not. If I stay at this consistent weight, I know that I have my explosiveness. Like, we had a long, in-depth conversation while we're waiting for a pasta at the bar at St. Vincent's. But it was like you could see the light clicked on for him, and then unfortunately just takes the injury and then can't get back on the field. So it's like, man, this is one of those where, like, you get it there, and it's just like drag racing, right? You get the cars were performing great, it's flaring out, the engine's got everything going, and then as soon as the light turns green, boom, the engine blows up on you. And it doesn't move. You know what I'm saying?
I didn't step on the gas wrong.
Yeah,
right.
It's like, wait, it's like, what did I do?
Right.
But sometimes they're just misfires, and that's the problem we have with Leal. And Leal should have been that guy. He has all those traits you want, but it just can't quite get to the finish line. And so that's the tough thing. So we can't take that chance again.
Yeah,
because we've already taken.
He was also a third-round pick.
Right.
He wasn't a first or second. So you had that opportunity. Okay, we got our our guys in the first 2 rounds. Take a chance on a guy in the third round who has some traits that maybe you can develop.
And helmet scouting is dangerous. I mean, and it's usually a mistake, but also ignoring it can be a mistake too. If there's enough of a trend, how these guys being,
Texas offensive tackles.
Yeah.
Right? That was the one thing from like 2007 to like 14. Like you said, you're not helmet scouting, but it's like,
but don't ignore it.
Don't ignore it. Don't sit there and draft. Don't you draft that tackle in the first round from Texas, because you are going to be disappointed. And they followed that, and then of course they've now changed that trend. But it was a real thing. It was like, don't ignore every other sign that every 31 other teams are doing. Don't think that you're the exception to the rule. There's a reason why
Davis
this is
the
there.
Bills took really early. And
right.
Well,
and Alabama offensive linemen, right? I mean, if you're looking at tackles and that, like, you can go get a guard or a center, but if you went to tackle, I mean, Alex Leatherwood, right?
There's a bunch of them.
There's a bunch you can name, and just like and also
questionable.
And then running backs, it was a crapshoot. Even as good as the running backs were, like Derrick Henry really revived that trend for them, and Mark Ingram. But after that, I mean, let's think about the multitude of backs that came from Bama that were drafted high and never did anything.
And you wonder, are they just getting beat up more in practice? Is it harder for them to get on the field because it's such a level that, I mean, I got to work so hard and take such punishment just to get on the field.
Just to get on the field. And it's log jam there. So it's like, I have my 1 year to make it happen, but it's like, what did you do and how much tread did you tear off in the process? Najee obviously was one of those guys that was a little bit exceptional because he had a split backfield, so he was able to kind of be a more premier guy and save himself a little bit. But, I mean, it's one of those things. You look at schools and you have to say, okay, well, what's the trend here? Why isn't anybody taking these guys when they come out?
Ohio State wide receivers. Trends the other way. Like,
sure.
Just give me one.
But Ohio State quarterbacks for decades were.
And even still, we're still waiting for it to really come over. We'll see if Justin Fields can break that curse, really. But, that's another one. Ohio State quarterbacks, for how many? I mean,
my whole life.
Years. Yeah, exactly. Right. I haven't seen one. Kirk Herbstreit. Hey, didn't make it.
For the longest time, it was just Big Ten quarterbacks in general. Like, they were just there were no
State
hits.
Didn't crank out a ton of. Kerry Collins was good.
Kerry Collins was like the best one for over like a 25-year period.
Yeah.
Like, it just didn't translate. Brady obviously changed
all of that. And he was a 6-rounder, though.
Yeah, he wasn't a first-round guy.
He was not a first-round guy.
But Henson didn't hit. He was the star.
Exactly. You're like, oh, what about him? Is he going to – nope, he's not going to do it. So
Chuck Long was their standard bearer for a long time.
Drew Brees is a good one. But still, I mean, that's a whole conference.
Yeah.
Exactly. We're picking guys like out of 10-year spans, and we're finding one or two here and there.
Yeah. Oh, I remember there's one. There's another. But it's not like here's 10.
Right. Antoine Randall was there, but he became a wide receiver.
Right.
Indiana quarterback. So –
but even like back to this D-line conversation, like I like Walter Nolan from Mississippi better than these A&M guys for sure,
absolutely.
But he has a lot of inconsistencies too. I mean, his highlight tape is unbelievable, but there's some lowlights. It's like, what's he doing? I mean, all these guys they're not surefire dudes.
Well, and that's why you say there's no Jalen Carters in here.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
There definitely is not.
But can you find the Kobe Turners? Can you find the Youngs of the world, that are like, okay, they're developmental. I can talk them into it because there's traits that we need specifically that fit our scheme, right? And it's like, listen, I'm not going to ask you to do everything that Ole Miss you were asked to do everything, right? Because you were that interior guy that we needed to make the splay, right? Yeah, exactly. We needed you to make the splash every time to get everybody else going. Here, you just need to fit in and do your role and do your role consistently.
That's why, to me, The trait that I want from those defensive linemen is a motor.
Yes.
That's what I saw with like Braden Fisk last year.
Yep.
Just give me the motor, and I'll teach him the technique. But he better have the motor, because if he doesn't have the motor,
That raises
all the
the
technique
floor.
in the world doesn't help you.
I do think the motor raises the floor.
Yeah, it does. It raises
Yeah.
the floor. It gives you more of an opportunity to kind of work with that. Because I would rather, I go back to this. I'd rather have the Tasmanian devil.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying? I just need you to go mess things up. Because at
Being
the
a pain in the butt to
position,
play against.
Yeah. Exactly.
Ty Robinson from Nebraska.
Yeah. Yes.
Just go break some stuff.
Yeah, just
He's
go
like
break
the
some
Army.
stuff. Yeah, exactly. It's like, listen, he's the Marine Corps. It's like, hey, listen, Jarhead, we need you to go in and just mess it up for everybody
Yeah,
else.
break things and throw stuff
and then,
around.
and then get back to the huddle. That's it. Break it, don't buy it. So, but that's like you said, that raises the floor and gives you a leg up. And I think there's plenty of guys that do that. But like you said, when you look at certain schools and you look at the trades, and you have 3 guys in this draft, I need one of you to be a production guy.
Yeah.
Because
One of the
or else,
three, right.
what are we doing?
Right.
And you don't have that. And so
it's not even like you can say, well, like in years past with some of the Georgia guys, well, he didn't have a lot of sacks because other guys were getting there.
yes.
Or they're sitting the whole fourth
Nobody
quarter.
had any.
Nobody.
Right,
It was like
right.
3 of you came in and none of y'all did anything. Because, like you said, you can look at a Nolan Smith on the line like, okay, well, Jalen Carter didn't get the numbers because Nolan Smith beat him there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And Jordan Davis was in front of Jalen Carter the year before, so that's why he didn't get any stats
So
the year
was
before.
Wyatt, and also a first-round pick.
You
You're
know,
right.
you could look at Trayvon Walker,
Sure,
right?
they're
I mean,
everywhere, yeah.
That's where you're like, well, it
I
doesn't
can
hurt.
explain that,
Like
right.
Ohio State wide receivers.
Yeah.
I got to pick one of these guys because they all got the trait. They just one got there quicker than the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can look at a culmination, and they're the number 1 defense, in the league. Texas A&M wasn't that. Texas
No,
A&M
no, right.
wasn't. It was middle of the league at best, and these are 3 guys that did not get those stats. So where did those stats go? On underclassmen, they're still there.
Yeah.
I'll wait till next year
I
then.
mean, I got to have a pretty good firm confidence in my D-line coach if I'm taking those guys too.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's hard to develop players.
And
in
that's
the
what
league.
it comes down to. And then you say, do I have the capability to give this guy the attention he's going to need?
Right.
What type of coach am I? And I look at that, and it takes a special team. I mean, like Philly is one of those exceptions because they've stockpiled so many guys. I can spend more time with him because I don't have to tell Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis what to do.
They got a lot of money in the bank
Yeah,
already.
yeah, they've got it. I don't have to tell Josh Sweat what to do, right? So I can now focus on you guys and build you guys because they're going to self-regulate themselves. Just like our Steelers teams in the past when I played on them. Like, you didn't have to tell Aaron Smith, what to do. You didn't have to tell Casey Hampton what to do. So I can now focus on building Brett Kiesel up, right?
Yeah.
And I got a Kimo von Oelhoffen in front of him anyways. So, and Kimo's been there forever. He's older than time at this time. What am I going to tell Kimo that he hasn't already seen? Right, as John Mitchell. So now I can really hammer in the technique, and that's what made Mitch so great was that he took these young guys.
He broke them down.
He broke them down, and then he built them back up. Completely break down. He broke me down, and I wasn't even in his group. You know what I'm saying? So funny sidebar real fast. I remember the one year they asked me to go play D-line when I was with the Steelers, and that was like my 4th year in the league. And they're like, hey, you're going to play goal line and short yardage defense. I was like,
Well, really?
okay, all right.
yeah.
Sure. So, I mean, I'm not. I lost my starting job, so okay. I guess the
Don't
more you can do,
contribute. Right,
the more you
right.
can do. Right? Remember that phrase,
Yeah,
Dale?
yeah.
Oh God. So I go into the
He's big. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, right.
Like, hey, John Henderson, Marcus Stroud, Albert
Right.
Hayworth, Max Starks. Go
Same
ahead.
thing, right.
Yeah, it's same thing. You came from the SEC, right? You're good. And so I remember going to that first meeting, and Mitch was like, "What are you doing in here?"
I bet.
They told me to be in here. Oh shit! I can't deal with this. Coach, I'm just here for short yards and defense, and then I was on field goal block.
That makes sense.
So he was
Sure.
like, "All right, well, sit your ass in the back." You know what I'm saying? Like he had that type of mentality, and I just remember sitting back there, and I just remember watching Mitch go through like technique drills, and so we get out there to the field. After
Which a
this
lot of
first
coaches
meeting.
don't do during the season. They don't have time for that
They
stuff.
don't do
It's
that,
just
but
beat
and
the
also
Ravens.
yeah,
right?
yeah, it's like, but Mitch was so intent, so he would just let the starters do whatever they want. Like Hamp, go do what Hamp does, and Hamp would just sit there and, he would stretch a little bit.
I go left,
Hit the
I go
drill
right.
once. Yeah, he's like, I go left, I go right, and then I just stand still. So, and then Kiesel's doing his drills, and Smitty's doing his. Where did I fit in? He's like, no. You're going to be over here with Hokie. I was like, Hokey, bro? It's like, we don't look anything alike.
We're not really the same. Yeah, right.
Like, just do what Hokey does and you'll be fine, man. I was like, it's like Hokey. And Hokey's Tasmanian devil, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Motor. When you talk about a motor guy, like, you're going to have a chance. And so I remember.
Traits aren't exactly.
The traits aren't there, but the effort, I mean,
Never
all hard.
stop, nonstop.
Yeah. And so I'm over there working the drill with him. He's like, hey, so in goal line, we're a 6'2", we're a 6'2" defense. You know that, right? I'm like, yes, I know that, Hokey. I know what defense structure. It's like, where do I line
played
up?
Against it for a
and
while,
what do I do in this moment? He's like, all right, so you're going to sideboard. So first thing you're going to do, you're going to attack to the interior guy, and you're going to swing your butt around into the outside guy, and then you're going to step your foot through. I was like, what?
This is not
I was
natural
like,
for me at all.
First,
Right?
do you see how tall I am?
Yeah.
I'm going to take out the whole right side of the line with my butt cheek and a thigh. I'm like, you have to be a little more technical with. And I just remember going through that. And then Mitch came over. He was like, hey.
A lot different when he does it when you do it, right?
Exactly. I was like, you can do that. I was like, this is not for me. And so Mitch watched it for like a couple of rounds. He's like, all right, Stark. So listen, you're messing it up. Of course, he used a more
Wasn't quite as kind
expletive
about
word.
it, yeah.
Yes, another 4-word.
Colorful,
Yeah, flowers is the lead letter on that one. So we get into the drill, and he's like, all right, the first thing I need you to do is just drop the knee and then reverse shoulder into the guy, because you're not going to be able to swing your hip around, right? It's like, once again, the truck making the wide right turn.
Right.
Like the time you do it, they've already collapsed your hip. So for you, you're going to have to drop the knee and then throw the shoulder into it while extending your arms, because you have longer arms. So he taught me that, and it was just like,
you're going to do it different than Chris did.
I'm going to do it different than Hokey. So, why'd you send me with Hokey in the first place? But he was dealing with other guys at that time. So I realize that now. But he made it so simple. But when you have a coach that has the time to be able to, he came over. It's like a mechanic that's been working for 30 years, and you got the first-year mechanic straight out of school. It's like, oh, well, I have to do this. I have to take this. He's like,
There's only
don't worry about this. It's like, boom, 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 you're still there. Look at that. All right, now keep doing that thing, and then walks off, right? So but you don't have that time now in this league.
Yeah.
The way the PA has structured, with the
There's
collective
not much practice
bargaining,
time, right.
there's not a lot of practice time on the field with the coaches. Like when you do the OTAs, it's 2 hours, and they're with the timer looking at you. So if you want to do anything extra afterwards, like after practice, I could pull Russ aside, and say, hey, Russ, I want to work on this. All right, let me see you do it. They'd spend time with you. Players stayed on the field a long amount of time. Like we see at training camp, like some guys do it.
Yeah.
But this was regular season. We were able to still do these type of things. You don't see that in the regular season. Like guys are just getting off the field, and there's not that intent to learn the extra. And then the veterans aren't necessarily there. Like I had Marvell Smith, and I tried to learn Marvell's stance, which was the biggest mistake of my life, because the amount of lower back and lower body strength you have to hold that stance was ridiculous.
Okay.
But he had a band around his waist. He had a band on his elbow. He had a band on his knee, and he was doing all of these like isometric holds. And I was like, no, it's not going to work for me. It's not going to work for me. That's great for you.
Yeah.
But it's not going to work. But I had the chance to talk to him, and then and then I talked to Alan after practice, because Alan's doing extra work, and guys are just intent. Jeff was taking a whole bunch of snaps, and Jeff wasn't a power lifter. He was a power lifter at Penn State in the early years when he was in Detroit. By the time he got to the Steelers, he was a yoga master. You know what I'm saying? Like all he worked on was flexibility. He wanted to have a lower angle. Yeah, he knew he had the power, so it was like developing that power from a more tight state. And so he would do 50 to 75 snaps after practice. So that I don't see that here. You know what I'm saying? Now, because there's not a time to teach. It's like we got to get to meetings. I got to go watch film. I got to break down film. Then we have only a 45-minute film session. Okay, we get to that. Then the team has to have their meeting. Boom, 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 boom. Day's over, and I can't touch you a second time on the field. Right? And that's why you had, when we saw during camp, right, Russ is on the field with a running back group trying to go through stuff with them, and they're by themselves on the field, or he's with the wide receivers, and he's talking about, like, you have to do it on your own, and there's not enough older leaders to do that.
It's tough. And even back to, I know we need to roll, but like after like Shamar Stewart, don't ask him to go with Chris Hoke.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
if you have someone like him, draft him, and maybe you can learn from that guy that's similar. But square peg, round hole.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's get to a break. He is Max Starks. That's Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. We are live at the NFL Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis here on Fox Sports Pittsburgh and the Steelers Audio Network. We'll be back with more right after this. And welcome back to the NFL Scouting Combine here, our ongoing coverage on Fox Sports Pittsburgh and Steelers Nation Radio. I'm Dale Lolley here with the Matt Williamson and the Max Starks. He gets his the today.
Okay, you earned it.
He earned it.
Yeah,
Yesterday was Mr. The to me is higher than Mr.
Oh, well, thank you. He'll be back in a minute.
Yeah, he's just up to. He's a very popular guy out there.
That's true.
Matt, some news and notes today. John Lynch, the Steeler or the 49ers general manager, saying that Trent Williams expected to come back and play next year.
Wow.
What, 38?
I would say real close to that. They're in that neighborhood,
Yeah.
right?
So I guess the 49ers would take left tackle out of the equation. Perhaps. They could still,
future left tackle,
you
maybe.
could still take one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Guard turn left tackle in a year or something.
Yeah, let him train
right.
for a year under Trent Williams. And he said they're going to honor Deebo Samuel's request for a trade. That's two big ones that are going to take place here. As Max Starks is back with us, 49ers saying today Trent Williams expected back next year, and they're going to honor Deebo Samuel's trade request.
Okay.
I didn't see that coming with Williams. I mean, he had some off-the-field personal tragedy. I thought that might be perfect time to kind of walk away from the game. He's an all-time great. I mean, he's a phenomenal football player, but I thought this past year was probably the first signs of decline and pretty heavy at this point too. But they're still looking at this like it's Super Bowl window.
Like he
right.
skips. He doesn't do anything in training camp anymore.
No, he just shows up in season ready to go.
Yeah.
And I mean, and like you said, I mean, he's an all-time great. I mean, when you put him on that list, I mean, he's another guy, first ballot Hall of Famer when he becomes available.
Yeah.
Easy decision, but like you said, when is time? And the amount of money
the first
that
time
he's
it started
commanding,
to sort of show.
It started to
right.
show, and like you said, you have so many other needs at San Francisco, after the year that you had, that it's like if you do free up money, that can go towards allocating somebody else. Now, granted, I know there's no Trent Williams in this draft. That's going to be a transcendent tackle, but you could still find a good tackle in this draft.
Wouldn't be a bad idea to take one and have him learn for a year under Trent Williams.
Play on the right side or guard or whatever.
Yeah, because
right.
you got what Colton McKivitz is the other guy on the right, and
Pooney, they like the rookie guard, but there's room for a guard to spend a year and then kick back out the left.
And there's room for improvement. Like this is the moments where you don't want to sit there and say, okay, just because I have this guy means I can't. I avoid the position, set it and forget it, right? Like a crock pot. You've got to have the next guy there. I mean, and one of the things that a good team like San Francisco, I'm sure John Lynch is looking at this, is you want to stockpile talent. You don't because I mean the cupboard gets bare.
It's what the Steelers are trying to do.
Yeah,
Omar Khan talked about it yesterday. You want to just continue to try to add to your team.
Yeah, and we did that even back when I played, right? I mean, you took me in the third round in 2004, then you came and took Trey Essex the following year in the third round. You took Willie in the fourth round. Yeah. You took Tony Hills, right? You added tackles every single year.
They don't grow on trees,
one of them's going to hit, and then you remember it was Marcus Gilbert, it was Mike Adams. Like we kept taking tackles in the first 2 days. We're like, okay, we got some guys that we feel comfortable with. And then, of course, Kelvin Beachum was another guy you took when you win the Dave DeCastro year. You went and said, hey, well, we went and got a guard high, but let's go at least get a developmental guy that could probably swing on the inside, play 4 different positions potentially.
And next thing you know, 14 years later, he's still playing.
He's still playing. I mean, gosh. I mean, and we talked about Beachum, and I love Kelvin. But it's like you have to continually do that, and I think
the Steelers didn't for a long time before taking Broderick Jones.
Yeah,
they kind of paid for it for a while.
Yeah, and you saw that, and then of course letting guys go like Finney left, right? And you had I'm
even
trying to
like
think of the
Hubbard
other guy.
and
Hubbard
guys that Munchak developed.
And so you let those guys go, and those guys are still in the league. You know what I'm saying? But you have to be able to address offensive and defensive line kind of consistently. You got to take them every year and say, well, one of them are going to stick over these years, and at least if we finally get that guy, we know that we can plug and play. When you do have a Trent Williams type retire, we have somebody slid in there, but they've focused on every other position over the last couple of years, and now you're in a position where it's like, we're kind of stuck.
Well, let's talk Deebo Samuel real quick. If he's going to be available.
From what I understand, trading him is really rough on their cap. And I don't have the contract stuff in front of me, but I think he's going to get cut, is how I implied that. And I'm sure if they could get a pick out of him, they'd love it.
Yeah.
But I don't know that the cap ramifications are.
It was a 3-year, $71.5 million deal that he signed just a couple of years ago. His cap hit this year is $15.8. If they get rid of him his base salary is only 1 point.
I think his base is
1.17. That
Yeah.
makes him very,
attractive.
very attractive
it's
via
attractive
trade.
to
Yeah.
the new team, right?
I'm not seeing dead money here. If they, I guess, look at a different.
Max, would you be interested in him putting opposite Pickens? Depending on cost and all that. I mean, just on the
Yeah.
field, what you've seen from him. I have mixed feelings about him.
I do too, because because Debo's a guy like he's not
Lot of
clearly
wear and
defined,
tear.
and he's taking a lot of snaps.
Yeah.
So
Physical snaps.
And so where I think about it, I look at Debo almost in the Cordero Patterson range, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have.
I think he's a much better version. But
He's
I
a
think
better version, but he's taking the similar type of Pat where he's in
Yeah.
the backfield. He's also in the slot. He's your jet motion guy.
Yeah.
He's also a lineup receiver. Like he has a lot of capabilities, and it's more like a jack of all trades, master of none type of situation. And do we really want that? I don't know if that necessarily pairs well opposite George Pickens. I don't think he gets the same type of respect that a Brandon Ayuk would have gotten on the edge if you line him up, and you're still.
He's the pure route runner.
Yeah.
Where Debo's
And
not a trick guy, but sort of.
He's gimmicky. He's gimmicky.
It's
and
a
so,
$31.5 million cap hit if they trade or release him before June 1st.
That's what I thought. I thought it almost doesn't make any sense.
Post
for them.
June 1st, they'd be able to split that up over a couple of years, and so they get a little bit of cap savings this year.
Yeah.
It may end up being a post June 1st designation, and just.
I think that's what happened.
I think
they
that's
would love to trade him.
Yeah, they would love to trade him, but like you said, that number they're not trading him before that.
No,
it's
not
not,
for
it's not,
$31
it's not
million,
cost
right.
effective. So, getting a Debo Samuel in June, and you pretty much got training camp to work with him.
Well, they could release him today and designate him.
They could, yeah.
Right. Which I think
that's what they're
what's
going to do with
happen.
Javon.
Okay,
yeah, with Hargrave.
Yeah.
Okay, Hargrave has the same situation.
Yeah.
I think that's what will happen. Is he'll be on the open market.
But then that means next year they're eating more.
Oh, right.
You know.
Yeah.
And they're in a bind right now because of the whole Purdy situation.
Yeah.
Like, what do they pay Brock Purdy?
And that's going to be the question, right? Mr. Irrelevant becomes very relevant after a couple of years of production.
He's not going to be cheap anymore.
No. You missed that.
Comes down to roster building. They're so top heavy, and that's worked. I mean, they were in the Super Bowl a year ago. I mean, so they've had a lot of success. They haven't won it yet, but they have a lot tied up in McCaffrey and Williams, and now
Ayuk.
both receivers.
And now Ayuk,
and,
yeah.
absolutely.
And think about this.
Warner and
McCaffrey,
Bosa,
you're going to have to
right.
address the running back position. I know Mason was good for a couple of weeks, but Christian McCaffrey, what are you going to get from him when he comes back?
I think what their plan is, Max, is I think he's going to become the Debo. They call it the wide back. You know, it's a wide receiver, running back mix type of guy. He's such a good receiver. I think they want to extend his career by not giving him between the tackle carries at nearly the rate they are now.
Yeah.
I know he's special, but the Shanahans have always gotten by with the fourth-round
With
back.
the Jordan
You know,
Masons.
the Jordan
Jordan
Mason,
Mason
you know,
types,
those type
to,
of dudes.
to be your hammers, yeah.
And I think McCaffrey's going to be in the slot a lot, out wide, get 8 carries a game, not 18, you know, and extend his career, especially coming off this injury.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I don't know how effective he's going to – because even when he came back last year –
Oh, no, right. He may never be the same. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, there was
So
talk
like,
of him going to Europe for treatment and all kinds of stuff. Like, he has a weird – whatever his ailment is not easily correctable.
Yeah, and the thing is, how much money you have tied up with him at that position,
Right,
too.
right,
and that's why you're trying to rob Peter to pay Paul, and then you're having to make these type of decisions. And like you said, and Trent costs a pretty penny to keep him there, and he said he wants to come back. And like you said, Bosa, Kittle. I mean, we got so
they're
many.
not a deep team.
They're not
heavy.
deep. I mean, and then you think about
That showed to be the case this year.
Right,
When
a lot of
they
their-
lost
Yeah.
some of those guys.
You lose your top-heavy dudes, then it gets ugly, and you're picking the
because
top
Dre
10.
Greenlaw never really kind of fully recovered from the injury he had, in Super Bowl. And so you're like, well, we got to go get a linebacker too, just in case, because Fred Warner's been great, but Fred has taken a lot of brunt because of the lack of Greenlaw. So now,
And Greenlaw's up this year. Hafanga's up this year. Ward's up this year. So they're losing 3 starters in the back 7 too. You know,
so
their needs are plentiful.
They're plentiful. So you got to try and cut where you can, and you don't want to say it's throw it out and start over again. But
Debo's going to go.
Yeah, Debo's gone.
Yeah,
because he doesn't bring enough to the table.
Right. They
with
drafted
everybody
Pearsall
else.
in the first round.
And
right.
And this dude came back after being shot and was productive. You know what
He
I'm
didn't
saying?
even get shot in Denver.
Yeah. No. Yeah, he was in San Francisco outright.
They shot me in Denver.
Yeah, they shot me. Oh, God. Easy. Oh.
Well, let's get to another
Yeah.
break because I want to talk about, and when we come back, some of these wide receivers in this draft and where the Steelers might go with that when we come back. He is Max Starks. I'm Dale Lolley, and he is Matt Williamson, and you're listening to The Drive here on Steelers Nation Radio and Fox Sports Pittsburgh. We'll be back with more live from the NFL Scouting Combine right after this. We are back. I am Dale Lolley here with Max Starks and Matt Williamson at the NFL Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis on Steelers Nation Radio and the Fox Sports Pittsburgh. And, guys, we're talking a little wide receiver there with Deebo Samuel. And my thing is, Max, if you needed a Deebo Samuel-type player, you could just draft Luther Burden.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you know wear and tear, and he's fresher in there, and you can mold him into what you want as opposed to trying to get rid of some of the bad habits.
He's got a lot of the same run after the catch ability. And,
yeah.
If you but that's the problem that I have with Luther Burden is like when I turn on Missouri tape, like 75% of his stuff is he's catching something in the flat and just it's a screen, it's a bubble screen, it's 5 yards and turn around and catch the ball and try to get something after the catch. You just don't see enough down the field stuff to even can he run routes? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and also the other problem is Missouri's offensive line was not that good.
And their quarterback's terrible, yeah.
Well, and their quarterback, he got injured, remember, after like the third week of the season, then they brought the backup in, and he didn't know which way was up. And then you had the quarterback come back early from injury, and he had like a dead arm. It was a terrible year for Mizzou. From that perspective. So it was like, we just got to get the ball in Luther Burden's hand. And I think that's something that you kind of still stick to, because if you go back 2 years ago, that's where you get the vertical stuff.
Yeah.
The offensive line was a little bit better. They had better protection. And that was a year that Eli Drinkwitz and that crew was actually vying for a conference title position. Back when we still had we had divisions. Now it's just top two. In the Big 20 conference, which is used to be the Big 10,
right.
And the SEC is just the SC, the Southern Conference, because we got everybody in the South. It seems like so. So I think that was where you kind of have to go a deeper dive and look at 2 years ago film, and you thought he was coming out then, and he stays for the additional year because he wants to try and play.
Didn't really do him any favors.
It did not help him, and that's also where staying an extra year might not help you.
Sure,
you know what I'm saying? Where
it wasn't really his fault.
Yeah.
Right.
He thought he was getting his quarterback back. It's like, hey, we're going to build off what we had. Let's run it back one more time, right? The boys in the band. And it didn't work out. So that's what's going to cause him, I think, a little bit of a dip and slide. But this is where the combine is going to really help for him.
It'll help him quite a bit.
I just wish there were more quarterbacks throwing. We have so many quarterbacks to say they aren't throwing. How tired are the arms of the quarterbacks by the time they get to these guys again? Now, he is in Group 1 of the QB wide receiver combos that we'll be doing on the field workouts together. So
how many quarterbacks have – I know Sanders opted out, but who else has?
Cam opted out as well.
Did he?
And I'm trying to think. I'm looking at –
I didn't see any news other than Sanders.
Yeah, but here's his quarterbacks that are in Luther Burden's group. Will Howard, Seth Hennigan, Dylan Gabriel, Quinn Ewers, Jackson Dart, Brady Cook, and Max Brosmer.
Okay, that should be plenty.
There should be plenty of arms, but I think I'm hoping that Dart throws. I mean, I heard some rumors that he might not throw either. So now Brady Cook was his quarterback at Mizzou, but Brady was injured, so there is familiarity there.
Yeah.
Or you wonder if they're the type that's going to be like, well, we'll let our school workouts be the time where we'll really showcase ourselves.
Maybe
because I think Brady, I don't think he might be healthy enough to throw here.
And if I'm Burden's camp, I want him running a variety of routes.
He's got to run the entire route tree.
100%.
Yeah, no, I need to see go. I need to see double moves. I need to see comebacks. I need to see stick routes, square routes. I mean, I need to see everything in the book, and especially with his size, you have to be able to go across the middle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I need to see across the middle stuff. So, shallow drag and goes, right? I need to see these type of different move sets so I can feel better about it, because he has the
drill work here,
numbers.
the gauntlet stuff, and I mean, I think it's a little more important for him than most receivers, just because of the way he was used this past year.
Yeah, because it was not a representation of him, so he has to get back to 2 years ago status to really make that. He's still a guy that's intriguing, right? I mean, like you said, if I'm thinking about Deebo Samuel, I need to take a second look at Luther Burden.
If you have a role for that guy, and Arthur Smith has shown could use that guy.
He
He has a Patterson. And
I was like, he stuck with Cordero Patterson, even though we didn't really see him line up at receiver at all. 84 in the backfield again.
Right. Same with Atlanta.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, thinking about the other guys in this class, and I have my.
But they are going to add a veteran. I mean, maybe it is Debo. Yeah. I mean, but they're going to add a veteran.
Somebody.
Well, and like you said,
probably soon.
If it's for 1 point, was it 1.5 or 1.15?
It was 1.15.
Yeah, I'm like. That's a no-brainer. I mean, heck, you were giving Allen Robinson that,
right?
A year ago. You're giving Van Jefferson that. Why not have?
Yeah. He'll make
Debo
more than enough plays to earn that money.
Yes. Yeah.
I just don't know you can get him for that money because why would they trade him if it's going to be a huge cap hit? You know what I mean? Like why would the Niners say yes to that if they're going to get 17 in cap or whatever? Right.
If they're designating him anyways after June 1st.
Yeah.
It's like, well, no harm, no foul.
Right.
Right, and I think Debo will want to come here and try and play, depending on who
he'll
it
have
is.
suitors.
Yeah, he'll have plenty of teams that'll want that trait. But I think
the wear and tear worries me, the durability and how much does he have left.
Yeah, but 1.15 million. It's like
different world.
That makes everything a lot easier. Now, if I got to go 5, 10 to get him, then no, we'll go elsewhere for that because there's still plenty of time. But another couple of guys that I mean, of course, Emeka. Ibuka.
Yeah.
That's a sign seal delivered. I mean, once again, Ohio State receiver.
Yeah.
I mean, but he's physical. He gives you something in the run game. He's going to block down the field.
Oh, he does everything well.
So that's what I'm saying. So it's like I could see that guy. You know what I'm saying? Fitting into this system.
But these are first round guys.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm using 21 on him.
We're talking about taking a defensive lineman in the first round.
No, and I think I would say if. But see, my thing is, I think Emeka may or may not be in the first round. I mean, I think he might.
I don't think he gets a Steelers second.
He won't get the 53.
He won't get a second, but I think that's where we have to try and move up in the second day. If he's there, you got to get up into that. That would be one where
I'd be open to that if I had a lineman locked up and.
Yeah, exactly. I already took my 21. We're good. I got the D lineman I said I was going to get, and then I can go back in the third round and go get one as well. Second round, if I'm looking at a receiver. I think you have him. You have like a Jack Besh. You have Chimere Dike. You have some guys that are going to be in that second day and kind of fall through the cracks into day 2. And those are guys I'm kind of looking at like that. Because I think Ibuka, like you said, I like him, but I'm not sold on him. Is he a number 1
I think he's a high
pick?
Quality too.
Yeah,
which isn't
a
knock.
I think there's a lot of those guys in this draft.
Yeah, and that's why I think this draft is heavy.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's going to be a run on wide receivers this year.
No, I think it should be the lightest receiver year in several. Yeah,
so that's why I think second round, like you're going to get 1 or 2 that'll jump out there.
But I also think that's why some of these other guys, Golden and
Matthew Golden's another
Bird
one I have on my list.
And Egwica end up getting pushed into that first round because there's teams that need wide receivers. And
actually, a lot of the playoff teams need them.
Yeah, and you're just gonna take them.
Hey, the Kansas City Chiefs at 31 need one.
Right. Yeah. The Ravens,
the Bills could use one.
Yeah, absolutely. The Chargers.
And so, and when I look at this, I'm thinking like an Elijah Badger is going to be a guy that's going to be popular amongst them because he has the production, he has the skill set. I'm just gonna run through some of the stats here. As soon as I get down, there we go. So. Elijah Badger, right? Second in FBS in yards after the catch, 20.7, right? I think that's going to be attractive, especially when you're thinking about Kansas City. You're thinking about I need somebody that can do something after the yak ability.
Yeah.
Ted McMillan is already, I feel like, going to be one of the top receivers taking
I don't think he'll be there, right?
Yeah, he's not going to be there. I mean, all the mocks that have him in the 20s, I'm like, you're smoking crack. Okay. I hate to tell you that. I hate to say it. God bless whoever wrote that mock, but I don't think you were necessarily writing that after a cup of coffee. And so I look at those guys, and those are the guys that are going to be the first. And like you said, it may push Luther Burden at the end of the first round, possibly, but you also have to have a scheme fit for those guys. So if there's a scheme fit guy, they're going to go get him regardless. But I think like Emeka Ibuka, because you're like, you don't know, it's an enigma, like, I need a number 1 receiver, but you're projecting to me as a number 2, so I might overlook you in that type of situation. And then that's where it becomes like, okay, day 2, you got to be active. You got to be active and push up.
So I kind of foresee the Steeler receiver room as Pickens, Austin, Wilson. I think you bring back a Skournick as your gunner / 5th receiver on game day. That's not expensive. Some veteran that we know. I mean, somebody that's like in fantasy leagues. I mean, like a well-known, but not Van Jefferson. Like I'm not destroying Van Jefferson, but Kupp or Debo or Adams or somebody that's a legit dude, and a day 2 pick.
Yeah.
Because that day 2 dude needs to play a lot. And
we're gonna
maybe they're
and push Roman as well.
Yeah,
right? You need somebody to come in and push Roman, because I think Calvin, like you said, is our slot, and we're not drafting another slot.
Right. I don't need more little guys.
Yeah, I don't need any more because I got Roman and I got Calvin.
Right.
I'm like, okay,
and they're going to be on the team.
They're going to be on the squad. So it's like I need tall, I need length.
You got to be
somebody,
tall enough to ride the ride.
And I need somebody that's going to take the pressure off of George Pickens. Right. Yeah. And I need like you said, either established or a tall guy in this type of vein. Which,
a Betch or like a Yemen or
Yemen or the kid from Stanford, right? Yeah.
He would absolutely fit the bill.
Yeah, he would fit the bill because he's what,
he's 6'2"
or 6'2".
And if that veteran is Kupp or Debo, and you can't quite trust him to play 17 games, maybe one of those day 2 guys by week 10 is ready to be a full-time player.
I'll throw one out there at you that's appealing, and he's in the Pickens vein. Andrew Armstrong from Arkansas.
Okay, I need to look at him more.
Yeah, look, he's led the team in receptions the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Granted, you've gone through KJ
but he's a
Jefferson
downfield guy.
He's a downfield guy. He's 6'4" as well, and has caught near 80 catches a year. So he has that. He has that pedigree, and he's a tall receiver. He gives you those Plax vibes, right? So that would be another guy like late in day 2 that if I'm thinking 3rd round, I'm probably looking at Andrew Armstrong and that type of vein. I want a big body target as well that can run.
Yeah.
And that has the culmination of catch, the cumulative effect of knowing how to catch a football. I don't want the Xavier Worthy speedster. He may or may not 50-50 ball.
No, I don't think that's what you're looking for.
The one that's an enigma to me this year is Savion Jones from TCU.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
He's a big
he averaged 10 yards a catch in his career. He's supposed to be. He's fast. He's big. Like, why is it 10 yards? I don't get it.
Yeah, it's like run to the sticks and you fall down. Yeah. and we don't need another Mapletron. Anyways, we'll just leave it at that. He has those. You hate to say it, but it's like, dude, you should be 15 to 20 yards. Like I said,
down the field,
down the field threat, and that's what you need because
the catch and
when you have
you
that,
know your quarterback too.
You force these teams to stay in too high, and you keep a 7-man
now
box.
You can run the ball.
Run the ball effectively, right? I don't
Let
want
alone
to
when Pickens was out.
Oh God!
Right.
At least we were.
You
we
can't
were
withstand
terrible.
that again.
No, and you need somebody that's similar. I don't say I need the exact same model, but I need something that imposes the will, like a Jamar Chase and
especially
a T.
Wilson's
Higgins, right?
quarterback.
Yeah,
it depends. Better
depends on who
you're
you're.
Right.
Yeah, I need tall targets that are very easily seen and also easily escapable from coverage, and that's why.
By the way, also block.
Yeah,
you run the football, right?
Yeah, because we run the football, and man, I'm telling you, I wish Jordan Tyson was in this draft this year. I know he got injured from ASU, but he was one of those guys I looked at. It was really phenomenal what Hines had done with him and really transformed his position.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't think any 5'9" guys anymore.
No, we're good.
We got to get to another break. That's going to do it for our first hour. We got 2 more left, guys.
What?
Two
more.
So
fast.
Absolutely.
So quick.
It's just flying by here. I'm here with Max Starks and Matt Williamson. I'm Dale Lolley here live at the NFL Scouting Combine taking place here in Indianapolis. Over the next few days here, we'll be here all week long bringing you coverage here on the Steelers Audio Network and Fox Sports Pittsburgh. That's going to do it for hour number 1 of our grouping here. Yeah. We'll be back with 2 more hours right after this. And welcome back. I am Dale Lolley here with Max Starks and Matt Williamson at the NFL Scouting Combine here on the Steelers Audio Network and Fox Sports Pittsburgh. And guys, just some other news and notes from around the league today. The Packers open to trading Jair Alexander.
Not surprising.
Yeah. Not surprising. It seems like that marriage is kind of fractured at this point, and
maybe more so than that. Yeah.
Well, and it's more than enough that these defensive backs from Green Bay have just been kind of sliding out over the last couple of years, and because Rasul Douglas also in the souring of that. So now Jair, he's same class, I believe, as Rasul, or a year after.
About the same age.
They're right around the same age. That now they're starting to funnel them out, and so trying to get some new guys in there. That doesn't surprise me. Jair Alexander, listen,
good player.
He's a great defensive back.
What's his contract look like? It's real easy And maybe Max will speak to this too. I mean, there really seems like a fracture over like 2 years between Packers and Alexander. Yeah. And everyone always blames the player. Maybe it's not. I mean, I don't know. I don't know that he has any off the field that I'm aware of. I mean, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But
I haven't heard of anything off the field because funny enough, I've covered the Packers a lot. I mean, my first 3 years working with ESPN, I was at a Packers game just about seemed like twice a season.
Oh, really?
Like I was up there because like I said, I had Fields' last game, which was Packers Bears in Lambeau. And so I've called and I had Jordan Love in college, and so calling like Jordan Love's games, I've been able to watch that production. And the year we played Green Bay, I saw them the week before they came to Green Bay, and then I had them 3 times in 1 year. And so, I
mean, he was one of the best corners in the league 2 years ago, and then there's been injuries and this fracture, and
I think
I asked because would you consider giving them a pick for Alexander?
He is his base salary is $16.15 this year. He's got another year left at $18.15. If they release his cap hit is 25.4 and 27.8, they save about $6 million by moving on. They've got an out after this year. They'd have $19 million in dead cap space. It's the cap hit is almost 25.5. So about $6.5 million they would save by moving on from him, and he's obviously not in their plans.
Yeah. That could be a first-round pick for them. I think you could get him for a late-round pick.
Yeah, I don't think they just want him off the books.
They just need him to go, right.
Again, it's a $16.15 million cap hit, so it's not like you're taking on nothing here.
Right. I think it's a late pick.
But you're getting Jair Alexander 2 years at $34 million, unless you want to tear that up and give him a new one.
Let's start
He'd
over
look pretty
again.
good opposite Porter if he's happy and healthy and all that stuff.
Yeah, I would say health would probably be my biggest question. Like, does he pass the medical? Is he over the injuries? But he would be a very desirable guy. Like you said,
28, something
28,
like that?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you need something opposite Joey, right?
I'd like someone a little older,
Yeah,
Trice
mature
could be
guy.
your 3.
Yeah,
And,
Trice could be your nickel third
He's
receiver.
got the size that you want. He's,
guy.
Aggressive, and he has a resume.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
that interests me.
That does interest me, too. And I'm willing to give up a 6th or a 7th
right.
in that range for it. I mean, I don't know if I would go all the way up to a 5th.
I mean, I'm not doing a 4 or higher for sure.
No, definitely not.
Right.
But, yeah, maybe
it's a big
5th.
contract, right?
Yeah, because that's a lot of money to take on as well.
Yeah.
And they choose into your 60, that you had available. So you go from being really healthy to, hey, doctor's visit, right?
But again,
you eat a couple apples.
You can adjust it. Let's say you add a year on at the end, give him a little signing bonus.
Spread it, yeah.
Knock
so much
knock
cap
that
space
number
a year
down
from now. Right.
for the next couple of years here. And
yeah, if you can get him in at probably a $10 million hit, I think it's a very, very desirable thing.
Even 12, I mean.
Yeah, 12, yeah.
They can stomach it. They can move money around, too.
Yeah.
I mean, the money doesn't necessarily worry me. I don't think they're close to drying up.
I think, in that regard, it's, right player fit.
Yeah.
You're willing to do a little bit more in that regard.
And like you said, it's a man cover corner. This isn't a guy who has to play zone and he can only play one side of the field. Right. We're not talking Richard Sherman, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I only played the right.
Yeah.
That's all I
do.
do.
Who you could still get 3 years out of before he turns 30.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I mean that's all you need, right?
Yeah,
I mean we just need a couple. We're not asking you to come and be a 10-year starter for us, but if we can get 3 really, really high-end years
I'd say
from
3 will be fine.
Yeah, you're in a great place. So it would be health. That would be the only thing. But I like that. I like that, especially draft pick compensation. Like I said, I'm willing to give up the end of the draft.
Yeah.
At that
for
point.
a starting corner, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just thinking it through now too. I mean, you mentioned the contract. If you think you can get 3 years out of him, put 1 year on it, move some money around, I don't think that's all that much to ask.
Yeah, and with the voidable years, you can really,
And he's a much different age gap between Porter and Trice. I mean, I wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
We talked often about a free agent being, a high priority there. I don't know that the draft is the best place to add that and just be young everywhere.
Yeah.
Rookie corners get picked on, even the best ones.
Yeah, because look at Trent McDuffie and those guys over at Kansas City, right? And all of them hit at the same time that you got to pay them.
Now you got to pay them.
If they do hit, you know what I'm saying? So
now Snead's with the Titans.
Yeah,
right,
exactly. So you're already starting to lose guys from that perspective. So yeah, I would love to bring in. That one's very interesting hearing that about Jair, because I think that's one that's a good fit scheme wise.
And I wonder if Porter would, if he's close to the player he was at his best day. I'm not even traveling Porter.
You don't need to.
If Chase lines up on the left and Higgins on the right, okay. If Zay
play
is
it.
on the left, right.
Yeah,
Let's
play it.
just less confusion, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Left, right it up,
And that's something, and Matt and I have talked about it in the past, Max, that really when you have a corner that travels, when that receiver moves from one side of the field to the other, it's not just that corner traveling over there. Everybody's jobs now flip.
It's invert.
10 guys have to adjust.
Yeah.
Revis following around somebody or Dion. It's easy on the corner.
Yeah.
Everyone knows his assignment. But
Yeah.
those other 10 need to make changes,
Yeah, and the corner that might have thought he had this type of coverage, now I got to flip it in my head and go in a different direction. All those things kind of matter in that perspective. So
Yeah.
but like you said, if you do have it, we don't have to flip every single play. We can play
Right.
sides.
And that's the ideal
Or
situation.
yeah,
You
gets
don't want
hurt
to have
or-
to.
Yeah,
do
right,
that.
or even if you're
the
still
Bengals,
in man,
you probably don't switch anyways.
yeah.
Right.
Well, and here's my thing: say they do flip the receivers on pre-snap motion, stay still.
Yeah. Now
You
Exactly,
had
exactly.
Chase, now you got Higgins.
yeah.
All right,
We're a man.
cool.
They don't
Right.
know we're a
We're
man.
good. Or if it's short motion, hey, I travel in for a second, but the second he crosses the center, okay, hey, you got him. I'll revert back. Now it's less of that trying to catch guys on fly motion, right? Because that's the other reason why you run fly motion, to try and get an angle and get a head
Absolutely.
of steam going.
Yeah.
But it's like, nope, I got to run into this other wall here.
They were a
It's gonna
left-right
stop me.
team until Porter stepped up and said, hey, let me follow DeAndre Hopkins or whatever it was that day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So left-right teams just seems to make more sense. If you could have a guy that's comparable, would
Yeah,
go a
yeah,
long way.
but you got to have equal skill set.
Right.
Yeah,
it's gotta
not
be
a
equal.
huge
It can't
drop-off.
be. It can't be a huge.
Yeah, exactly.
And Alexander's one of those guys that could maybe be that. There
Yeah.
aren't a whole lot of them on the planet.
Yeah.
No,
The
and
other guy
he's
who
built.
is available apparently is the Tennessee Titans have given Harold Landry permission to
I
seek
saw
a trade.
that. Yeah, I don't think another
It doesn't.
edge fits
Yeah, it doesn't
here,
fit
but,
here,
no,
but
it doesn't fit here.
I don't
But
think he
that's gonna
fits
be a
their
problem.
timeline. I mean, he's just getting up in age and he's a little expensive, and they know they're not
And
going to win the
they're-
next
They're
year. or
blowing
two.
up right now.
Yeah.
They've blown everything up.
which is
so.
funny because the Titans last year were one of the most aggressive teams in free agency.
Number one.
Yeah.
Number one, and including the Snead trade. I mean, they went.
They had everything but the quarterback.
Yeah,
They thought they had everything but
They
the
thought they
quarterback.
had
They
everything.
really
Which ended up
didn't
costing
have a good grasp of what they were.
Well, and that's what cost the GM Rand Carth on his job.
Right.
And you did it with a first-year head coach. That was the other thing. It's like you thought you were this far away, but it's like you also had a first-year head coach doing
And you
this
went in
job.
with Levis and Rudolph. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean that's
Yeah.
a lot of hoping and praying.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And not an established. And who they take at running back? I forgot who they grabbed.
Pollard, who's been fine.
Who's
but
okay.
the O line's a disaster.
Yeah, but I was like,
right side of the
but
O-line
Pollard is not one of the guys going
You
to
let
make stuff
Derrick
happen.
Henry go for
Pollard? Yeah,
Pollard.
exactly.
and Henry is like $8 million.
Yeah, it wasn't.
they're
it wasn't a lot.
they're proving to be
like,
a very
you spent like
confusing
drunken sailors on
organization.
leave in free agency,
Yeah,
and you didn't bring back Derrick Henry
Everybody's a 10, guys.
for $8 million. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
No, they're kind of rudderless to me. I don't understand the direction of that team at all.
And you're in the AFC South where Houston's kind of taken the reins, but Houston isn't that strong of a team.
No.
So I mean, the AFC South is wide open. So if you just exercise a little bit of intelligence, you could be comparable and competitive.
Oh
You know, in it, because I mean, the Colts are still. We don't know what Anthony Richardson is.
Right.
God bless him. He's a Gator. Love him, but you
He's
don't
a
know what
long
you
way
got
away.
there.
Right.
Jacksonville, my God. You know what I'm
They're
saying? Like
They don't
perennial
know.
loser, right.
yeah,
No.
they're not even there. And like you said, and the Titans are sitting there, and it proves that the entire division is seeing
Houston's
somewhat
winning
of
by
that.
default this
Yeah,
year.
yeah. It's
You're
like,
right.
hey, just give it to D'Amico and C.J. Stroud, like
Yep.
because
And
they're the ones
another
that are
team.
going to
They-
at least mess it up.
They have hardly any cap space either. I mean, they're
Yeah, because they
they
got
got
very
problems.
aggressive,
Right.
right?
They
You
they
went-
pushed
you
their
get-
chips
yeah.
in last year too.
Yeah,
You know,
because you
Hunter
took
and
Diggs and,
right, yeah.
and Mixon. I mean,
Oh,
you
yeah,
went,
they
you
went
got
after
a lot of pieces.
contracts.
Yeah.
Hunter.
So
Absolutely.
thank God for having Will Anderson and C.J. Stroud. As
Oh,
draft
yeah,
picks.
right.
That saved you with a fifth-year option.
Yeah.
You know, because those are your faces.
It's going to
but
be
yeah.
interesting, though, when those fifth-year options come.
I was about to say,
due in the same year.
3 years from now, it's going to be a little rough.
Really? 2?
Oh, 2 years. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. You have to make the
After
decision
after this
4.
next season, they're going to make the decision.
decision, are
and
we
then
keeping it?
basically they fully guaranteed those final 2 years of the contract for both,
Which
is
they probably
gonna
will do,
be
but
expensive.
you need to get used to. You got to start preparing.
It's gonna,
for that.
they're going
right.
to be $60 million between the two of them in fully guaranteed money.
And you have to think, when's Nico Collins coming up, right?
That was last year.
Yeah, they already gave
they
him.
already
They
gave
already
him
gave
a
him
deal.
money.
What about?
Right.
And then Tank's had the injury, so you can kind of get by on.
Well, now
that
they
one.
need receivers.
Now
I mean,
they need
Diggs
a-
is up. Tank's hurt. So they really only have Nico, where it looked like a super strength.
Robert Woods is old.
Yeah, Robert Woods. Yeah. Tight end. Who do they have at tight end?
Schultz. Dalton Schultz.
He's
Dalton
fine.
Schultz.
Right.
He's fine. You got him from Dallas, so he's on it.
But their protection stuff, their O-line stuff was hideous last year.
They need. I mean, listen, Kendrick Green's still there.
I don't know if they're going the right direction.
And playing.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. Anyways, let's get to a break. We got a guest
go
here waiting in the wings. He is Max Starks. I'm Dale Lolley, and that's Matt Williamson, Matt Williamson, here on the Steelers Audio Network. We are live from the Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis. We'll be back with more right after this. Welcome back to the NFL Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis. I am Dale Lolley with Max Starks and Matt Williamson here on the Steelers Audio Network, and we're joined now by Fran Duffy, who joins us every year now. But Fran's changed his designation here now with the All City Network.
Congratulations.
And a great draft stuff there. Check that out. How you doing, Fran?
Dale, I'm doing great. It's great to catch up with you guys. It's a yearly visit. I'm excited to be on.
Lots of Philly
Eagles
talk
somehow
out
got
here.
by without you, though.
Yeah, they found a way to get across the finish line.
Yeah, they were all right this year.
A crazy season for sure. They gave us plenty to talk about. So I still do plenty of Eagles coverage locally.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, so I do. It was probably this fall. It was like 60-40 draft Eagles.
Okay.
Next year it'll probably be more like 80-20 in favor of the draft. But it's
and that's been your passion, and that's why we have you on.
I'm excited for it for sure.
We were just talking about in the last segment about Jari Alexander. He's been granted a trade, and we've kind of thought that the Steelers might spend money in free agency on a corner. We definitely think a second corner is a high priority, but I wanted to talk about these draftable guys. I know you have a lot of input on these dudes.
Yeah, it's a really intriguing class because obviously look, you have Travis Hunter at the top who.
Just as a corner, where would you put him?
He's my number one player.
Okay, as
a
corner alone.
His corner. But I actually did something, Matt, that I've never done before with any player. Yeah, we've seen some guys that dabble in both positions.
Right. Not like him, but right.
Not like him. And so because of how unique he is, I actually did a complete report and write-up and grade and everything for offense and just if he was a receiver and wanted just if he was a corner.
I think that's smart.
I think that was the way to do it. Right. And honestly, the corner,
pretty good in both.
The corner is number one, and the receiver. Now the receiver thing is weird because this would be if he was to only be a receiver, he would be my wide receiver one, and he would be a top 5 player in this class too.
And if he's only a corner, he's your corner one.
He's my corner one and a top
he's
5
that special,
top 5 player in this class.
Yeah.
I hate generational. He is a generational profile. I liked Patrick Surtain's tape more when he was coming out. And he was my number one player in that class when he came out. But Hunter.
But those are the guys you're judging him against.
Yeah,
now. I mean, the best corners you've seen coming out.
I put it with Jalen Ramsey
in the NFL.
A good comp, yeah.
And that's why, I love Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter's an awesome player. I don't see him as Myles Garrett.
Me neither.
I don't see him as
Nick Bosa.
Right. I don't see. I think he'll be a great player. But if you're saying, would you rather have Hassan Reddick at his peak or Patrick Surtain? I'm taking Patrick Surtain.
All day long.
And that's kind of how I view Hunter.
There's more edge rushers than there are covered cornerbacks.
Yeah,
and you think he's a better corner than Carter is a edge rusher?
I do.
Understandable.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that he's not going to end up in black and gold.
No.
It's an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I think that ship has sailed.
Who's your two?
So right now, I've got the grades very close between Will Johnson and then there's a smaller school player, Siobhan Revel, the corner from ECU, has round one.
He has
tape.
crazy traits.
Insane traits. He's got NFL size. He is a pure press man skill set, which is very hard to find. And the guys that have that skill set, I think, are very valuable. So you talk about NFL length, the athleticism, the recovery speed, the ball skills, the toughness. He plays with an edge that I love. More so even that, Will Johnson is a guy that got a lot of pub. Coming into the year, I was always a little bit cooler on him, and then this year he got hurt. There were inconsistencies against the run that, to me, were present during their championship season, but it wasn't talked about as much. And I think now, people are kind of saying, maybe he's not that kind of presence on the perimeter, which I think is important because of the RPO game and the ball coming off. You need your corners to be able to able to make those tackles one-on-one in the flat. I look at Revel though; he's got
real quick on Johnson. I mean, what would he have to run to even be considered to fall to 21? I mean, it'd have to be pretty bad.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, look.
High 4.5s or something like
that.
Yeah,
I would say in that 4.5 range. I mean, 50th percentile for corner in the last 10 years for drafted corners was 4.45. and I think he'll be below that. So I think you're talking like 4.51 is the 20th percentile.
You think he'll be slower than 4.45?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
I mean, I know that's the concern.
Yeah, that is the number one question with him in terms of like pure on-field work. So Johnson's speed will be a big thing. But that's the thing about this class, though, guys, is that Johnson. People question the speed. I mentioned Siobhan Revel. He's coming off a torn ACL in September, so you're not going to get anything out of him here this week.
Sure. It'd been great to see him at the Senior Bowl or something like that.
No
As a small school guy.
Azaria Thomas, the corner from Florida State. Really good tape. Good press cover corner.
I say he actually plays press man.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
But the recovery speed's a little bit of a concern for me there, too. Like, I think he'll be okay, but not, I don't think he's a burner. So.
And as you know, this is a testing position. We care about the 40s with this position more than most.
No question.
Right, yeah.
One guy whose tape I love is Tommy Hill. From Nebraska. He's a converted receiver who played both ways in 2023, was going to play corner full-time this year. The first couple tapes, the first one I did was Colorado early in the season. He looked lights out. I was like, to me, looked like Xavier Howard, Trayvon Diggs. Like, he's that kind of big body type, like a
ball skills,
ball hawking trade, absolutely really physical at the line of scrimmage. Then he got a foot injury midway through the season, missed like 2 or 3 games. Tried to come back and gut it out, and just did not. He got toasted for some big plays, and they shut.
So there's bad tape out there.
There's bad tape out there.
But the league will
to sort through that.
Yeah, figure that out.
He went to the Senior Bowl, and he didn't look great in the Senior Bowl.
I didn't think he stood out the Senior Bowl.
He didn't look all that healthy down there in Mobile. What's he going to do here? That's going to be a big question. So, but that's the thing is you go.
But
through,
he's day 2 at best.
I think you're probably talking about him day 2.
Yeah.
So I think when again this corner class, there's talent. But it's going to be how many of these questions get answered this week.
What about a guy like a Jahdae Barron who projects maybe as a slot guy? Cooper DeJean.
Good point.
Was a
Brian
slot guy
Branch
last year.
That,
we loved him last year. He ends up falling to the second round.
Yeah, that was.
I think the
league's
league's starting to figure out that we can't just ignore slot guys. Either. I always say they tie the room together. They bring the defense all together.
The thing with Barron, though, I mean, again, he's listed by Texas 5'11", 192. So let's say he comes in 5'10". Let's say he comes in 190. So that's a small corner. I think he's a 4-5 guy. I don't think he runs that well. And so again, that will say to everybody he's got to play in the slot. He was an outside corner this year for the Horns. Was a nickel before that. I love the physicality. I just question the athleticism. It was like that was
the
not a
playing
question.
temperament seems to be there.
The play temperament's there, and that is something that I value a lot. But I'm worried about the physical profile there. If there's enough that he can hang and play man-to-man coverage, whether that's on the outside or when receivers have a two-way go inside, I think that he'll have trouble in those situations.
It seems like a shortcut, but I mean, 5'10", 190 with a 4.51. Doesn't sound like a first-round corner.
No.
I mean, if the tape is the best in the nation.
Yeah,
right.
And so now could he be Mike Hilton? Sure, like he could be.
Bigger, better version.
He could be, but I think that there's some projection there.
Okay. There's another guy that I'm interested in, and granted, I now go to collegiate ties and biases, but Azaria Thomas.
Yeah.
Another guy, Senior Bowl guy.
Yep.
He's around almost 6'2",
Max loves
6'1".
all the Florida State guys.
I'm just such a fan.
Former Gator, Max
Seminole
Stark
chop.
loves
There we
those,
go.
right. Loves those Florida State guys.
But he's intriguing because he's a taller, lengthier guy. Now, he didn't have the production.
Right.
Obviously, Florida State sucked this year.
Yep.
I take pride
sure
in
you're
saying that one.
brokenhearted.
Yeah, I'm really brokenhearted about it. But what is your thoughts about him? Because, I mean, I haven't seen that much of him this year. I didn't get to cover him. But I know he's a guy that's always kind of come up on the radar when I've talked to people.
He's got a great feel for playing at the line of scrimmage. And even though I don't think he's a burner, I think that I'm interested to see what he tests like this week. I do think that he's got that press skill set. I don't have a comp written down for him, but one of the things you talk about, like the production, he was only targeted on 10% of snaps this past year, which is a really low – the team stayed away from him. They were like, we're not going to that side of the field. He had really good flashes down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. I'd be interested to get your take. I love watching corners, and – to me, like, it's so applicable, some of that skill set to offensive line. Just guys that you'll being asked to play in reverse, and it's a non-comfortable position. It's not natural. And I think there's a lot of correlations there.
No, there is, and I mean, we always talk about top cover corners with top pass-setting offensive linemen, right? I mean, there is that because, like you said, working in reverse, and you're playing mirror dodge essentially, right? You know what I'm saying? Right. It's a mirror dodge type position. So I think one of the things that kind of stood out to me was, like you said, I didn't see a lot of balls thrown on him. Now, I didn't get to watch a ton of tape, but the times I did, I'm like, oh, he's out there, but there's no action towards him. All
Right.
the action's in the opposite direction.
Yep.
So is that good or is that bad? And that's where I'm kind of torn because, like you said, I saw a couple of clips.
Yeah.
You know, and I saw him, and he's like you said, long arm extension.
Yep.
He's going to press you at the line of scrimmage. He's going to bully you a little bit.
It's great
But
to see those press man coverage
Yeah.
snaps too. It's hard to
Yeah.
get those.
32.5-inch arms. Like
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
built that way.
Yeah, he's built that way, and so that's why he's intriguing. But I think because, like you said, if you follow helmet stickers, right?
Yep.
He's gonna get looked at differently because the team sucks so bad.
Yeah.
Maybe he's a guy that falls into day 2. If he can test well,
Right.
maybe he gets a little bit more bump. But I mean, everything fails in comparison to Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
All eyes are going to be on him. But where does that guy fall? Because I feel like he's a guy that could fall because of that, and I think he's an intriguing guy for our scheme fit as well.
Yeah, if
Oh,
he
yeah. I
if
think
he
it
tests
is,
well,
yeah.
he's first-round player.
Okay, yeah.
To
That's
me,
what
like
I was wondering.
if he were to run in the 4.4s, I think we're talking about him in the first round.
Okay, see, yes.
If he does not, if he runs in like the 4.5s, then I think you're talking more of a day 2 player. And it's funny, I was just one of the things that I've started to incorporate more into my not evaluation, but just to have this background info. Looking at some of those numbers, I mentioned he was only targeted 10.5% of the time. That's 90th percentile amongst corners drafted in the last decade. That's a really good number.
So everybody knew who he was.
Everyone
and-
stayed away, but when he was targeted, he forced an incompletion on 21% of his targets, which is that's a good number.
Yeah.
So like, all right, small sample, but
Yeah.
if you're going to come at me, like you're not
You
you're
made
not
him
completing
pay.
passes.
Yeah, you're
on
not
me.
getting a lot of good
It was
success.
impressive.
He didn't
year
fall.
from
he
him.
didn't fall asleep or get bored or
No.
he was
Right.
still
Yeah.
playing.
He was still engaged. Yeah.
On a bad team. To your point.
In terms of, and our guest is,
Fran Duffy.
yeah, Fran Duffy.
We've had a bunch
Long
of
day,
You gotta
Dale.
understand.
He
I'm
does,
in-
he does 5 hours.
I'm in
radio.
hour
Yeah.
3 and a half here now. Fran Duffy from the All City Network. But Fran, you mentioned the injury situation for the East Carolina kid.
Yeah.
There's a couple of guys
Yes.
in this draft, especially at the cornerback position. Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame,
doubt.
who are injury issues here, and we don't know what they're going to do, in this situation, and you might be flying a little blind with some of these guys in terms of what the NFL scouts are going to see here, maybe until pro days.
Yeah.
How does that shake out here? Do you think?
Yeah.
And like hypothetical, in 3 days, somebody says magically Morrison's fine.
Right.
Is he a first-round player?
Well, here's the thing. Talking to our friend Dane Brugler from The Athletic.
Yeah,
one of the best in the
I think he's
business.
gonna join us tomorrow.
Yeah, and one of the things that Dane brought to my attention, when you look at Morrison from Notre Dame, talented player, junior, captain, like everything you want off the field, he left halfway through the year because of hip surgery. That's his second hip surgery. He had a hip surgery in high school.
Yeah.
So for
And
a
I
guy
don't think
who's
the track record's great after hip surgeries, especially for corners.
Yeah,
right.
for a guy that's got
Flip your hips
Is
and,
there
right.
something degenerative there? Is it something chronic, or is it a fluky thing? Right. And so this week, that gets not solved, but every team will put him through the paces there medically and get a finding on how. Do we think this
I
is gonna
hate
be a
to say
long-term
it,
issue?
but draft day might roll around and day 1 went by and he's at top of best available, and then day 2 goes by and then you're like, oh, it's a problem.
Right. He will be a player that I'm sure, because they'll bring a handful of players back to Indianapolis in like late March, early April for that medical recheck. He would be on that group, would be my guess, and it'll be about that hip.
And Ravel will probably be there as well, I would think.
Yeah, right. So he had ACL surgery early September. He sent out a memo. His agent, his doctor sent out a memo to all 32 teams. It sounds like he'll be able to do like individual type stuff in the spring for mini camps, and then won't be ready for like full contact stuff until they get into the summer. But it seems like everything was clean there. Again, like if
he's a
healthy,
specimen.
If he's healthy, that's round 1 tape. Like I wrote down, there were shades of like DRC when DRC came
That's
out.
good. Yeah.
And he's not quite as tall. DRC was like 6'2 plus.
Really
This kid's
long.
really. He's long, not quite to that level, but one guy whose tape I loved was Alontae Taylor when he came out of Tennessee. He was a second-round pick of the Saints. And again, like that razor-sharp edge that he plays with, I love the play personality, and that's what Rebel certainly brings.
Okay. Competitive guy, huh?
Yes,
Okay.
which that to me at corner is super, super important.
Any other day 2 favorites?
Tommy Hill from Nebraska, we talked about a little bit.
Even if it's a slot.
Yeah, let's take a look. So Maxwell Hairston's an interesting player.
I was about to ask you about him.
I've heard mixed things about him.
Yeah, I mean, look, 179 pounds is light, and so people will look at that a little bit differently.
It's funny how, like, if he were 180,
yeah,
you feel
exactly.
a little bit differently about it. But
exactly.
you get into the 70s, and then he's probably going to come in here and maybe be light. to run faster. Or,
yeah, 175, and then you're like, oh God, okay, this guy is a stick figure.
Yeah,
but he was a guy.
He's not a manual
2023, he had a heck of a year.
Had a great year.
So and then it fell off, competition-wise, this following year, which Kentucky just struggled mightily.
Yeah.
And so it was like, well, is he 2023 version or is it 2024 version him?
Right.
Because he had what? He had 2 pick sixes.
He had 2 pick sixes, 5 picks overall in that season. And people, I think, will point to Emmanuel Forbes from a couple years ago, Washington, where he set the NCAA record with career pick sixes, and he was like 165 or whatever he was. And he was a taller corner.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is that like I had major questions about that. I graded him as a backup. I didn't think he could play man-to-man coverage.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at Hairston, like Hairston's got the ability to play man. When I look at him, I'm like, okay, like I'm still worried about the size. The instincts I think are just okay in terms of like reading route breaks and things of that nature. I thought he was solid but not great as a tackler. He had some bad misses, and so I think when you're looking at him, there's a lot to like. I like him more than I liked Forbes. But I think that there is some cause for concern. I do think he'll be one of the better testers at the position, though, this week.
Okay. Last one for me, and this is me being a Gator. Jason Marshall,
Yep.
another guy that you said might be a medical recheck type of guy.
Yep.
But he's almost 6'1". He's like 6'1.5". However they want to grade it, how far they push his head down when they're measuring him tomorrow, later in the week. He's a guy. He intrigued me because he had some good moments, and like you said, but then there was some things like at point 50-50 balls, like he struggled a little bit, but he has size and he has range, and I feel like he would be a guy that, it was a shoulder injury, so he should run. He's a guy that's intriguing to me with some of his measurables.
Yeah, the per snap production for him wasn't great, but you mentioned like the measurables are there. I mean, he's over 200 pounds.
Yeah.
So if he runs well enough at 200, that's going to play well with people. What's interesting about Marshall, he's been on my radar now for a couple of years. One of the things I love about coming here and talking with so many of these players, I don't ask them about themselves because they get asked about themselves a million times over, and they're so coached up at this point. I'm asking them about teammates, guys coming down the line, opponents, things like that. Marshall has come up in conversations here for the last 2 years. Trey Dean, when he came out, that feels like forever ago, but the 2023 Combine, Trey Dean, he brought him up. That's a guy to watch next year. Rashad Torrance, former Gator, brought him up to me for a guy to come down the line. Other players have brought him up as, he was the toughest corner I went up against when I went to the Shrine Bowl. Miami, Sam Brown said Jason Marshall, best corner I went up against this year. So I think he's obviously, look, there's a reason why he's getting this kind of respect from his peers and then from the opponents as well. He's got size. I thought he was solid at the Shrine Bowl. He
wasn't great, but he was just solid. And that's where I wonder, can he grow if he's in the right scheme? Because, I love my Gators. I cover my Gators. But at the same time, it's like there was so many other issues. It's like, how confident do you really get if your team's not getting a pass rush and you're like guarding 20 yards down the field because you haven't felt any pressure. Yeah, exactly. And in a reverse. I know how I felt when I had the block for six and a half seconds for a quarterback. I was like, please just get the ball out. Like just give me some relief here. Yeah. And I felt like that was a little bit with him, like because there wasn't the pressure. And I feel like if he's at 2.5, 3 seconds, it looks good, but then he kind of loses it after that when you get to 3.5, 4, and plus seconds. So that was a guy I wanted to ask about because he's another intriguing guy, day 2-ish, that you look at and say maybe we can work with that.
Yeah, barring just like him like tanking testing this week, I think that you're talking round 5, something like that. I think that's probably where a guy with his profile ends up, and I do think that there's some potential there for him to turn into a starter down the road.
Yeah.
Fran, everybody wants now to emulate the Eagles.
Yep.
It's not as easy as it seems. Like you just like snap your fingers and all of a sudden you've got 4 defensive tackles that are 340 pounds or whatever. The Eagle, I mean, they've had a plan in place where they build the lines. Is it as simple as that? But then last year they had the cornerbacks.
Yeah.
Like you can't just build that overnight.
And that's what's fascinating about it, talking with people about it over the last few weeks, because yes, their mantra is we're going to build inside out, line of scrimmage, O-line, D-line, priority picks, big money. That's where we're going to spend our resources. But you spend those top 2 picks on corner last year. 3 years ago, before the 2022 season, you spent a first-round pick trading for A.J. Brown. The previous first-round pick, you drafted Devontae Smith.
They really struggled to find receivers before that. They were missing left and right on receivers.
You spent big money on Saquon Barkley last spring, right? So you're finding your spots. And they hit on all of those spots while also raising the floor with that line, with the line of scrimmage. And to me, that's the way I look at it: is you raise your floor when you've got one of the best offensive lines in football, one of the best defensive lines in football, certainly young defensive lines in football. And then what raises that ceiling is when you've got Jalen Hurts, playing the way that he did down the stretch, and then A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, Dallas Goedert, the rookie corners. You get Zach Bond for pennies on the dollar to be able to play the way that he did, to be able to win on the margins that way. I mean, everything Howie Roseman pulled last year was able to hit in a big way.
Well, one question I would ask so last year down the stretch was very much like what happened to the Steelers this year.
Sure, yeah.
You lost 5 of 6 going into the playoffs, got smoked in the
Yeah.
playoffs. That one, multiple
Coordinator changes too.
Coordinator changes, but you brought in Bond,
Yep.
hit on that. You bring in Barkley, who everybody knew you were going to hit on that, but the draft hit.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Your top 2 in
Yeah.
your draft hit.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
in a big way.
Two
In a big
finalists
way.
for Defensive Rookie of the
Yeah,
Year.
in a big way. But the team itself, the core itself, wasn't that different from what you had last year.
Yep.
It just things fell apart last year.
And one of their biggest investments no one talks about is the edge rusher from the Jets that really did nothing for
Bryce
them.
Huff. I mean,
right, Bryce
he
Huff.
He was inactive for the Super Bowl.
Right.
I mean, it was a non-factor for the majority of this year, and so it wasn't how he didn't bat 1,000, but
Right.
But that's to me that's the thing is that when you look at the way that they approach it, and I think most front offices approach it, from what I understand, the way Omar Khan looks at it is you're not going to bat 1,000. You want to make as educated a guess and take the best bets that you can with every roll of the dice. And look, it's not going to roll positively every single time, but if you believe in your process, you're making good decisions, informed decisions, more often than not, you're going to be on the winning side of it, and that should put you in position. But you need to hit on those critical. It's just like in football where you can play really, really well for 98% of the game, but if it's 3rd and 8, do you make the play or do you not make the play? All right, you're in position to take that quarterback. Do you hit on the quarterback or do you not hit on the quarterback? And that's going to make or break your franchise.
They also might be the best developmental team in the league.
I was
too.
about to say,
You
their
know,
coaching
the
is
coaching,
what gets
especially the
overlooked a lot.
linemen. Right.
Yeah,
both sides of the ball.
both D and offensive line coaches
Yep.
are lights out with teaching.
Yeah.
So I mean, you
Have a
can
lost
take,
art in the league now.
Yeah, that's something that we don't say. And we've talked about this with
A lot.
with our guys.
Yeah.
Is where is the teaching going on? Like, who is the one that's going to be teaching these guys? And that's the other benefit you have when you can hit, like you said, like Mekhi Becton. Everybody thought he was in the land of broken toys.
Yeah.
And you put that guy at guard, and you're like, why didn't anybody else think of this before this? You know what I'm saying?
Let alone Mulata.
Yeah,
Right. I mean,
exactly.
he wasn't even a football player.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
He
he's a
didn't know
rugby
how to
player.
buckle the helmet strap when he first got there.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
Well, they didn't have a helmet for him at the beginning because his head was so big. I mean, jeez.
He is legitimately 390 pounds, but he looks like he's 320.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you can appreciate that.
Yeah,
right?
I can appreciate that. Yeah, because I did opening night, right?
Yeah,
I'm
right.
down
Yeah,
there, and I'm and him and Lane are next to each other. And he makes Lane look small.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then to have the high voice, the ukulele type of thing, and it's just like, oh my God, like they're built different down under.
So one of my favorite stories about was Jordan's first mini camp. I'm in line. I got there in the morning. I'm at the office. Get in line for breakfast, and I'm sitting there. A bunch of players are in. And the chef calls out. He's like, "Oh, the egg order's up," and it was this mountain of 24 eggs. Had to be like mountain of eggs, like 2 avocados, veggies, like whole thing. And Lane Johnson's in there. He's like, "Who is this for?" And here comes Jordan. It's one of his first days.
He said,
He's
"This
like,
is a rookie."
Thanks, Mike. Comes in, grabs a plate, comes back. Unbelievable. And apparently that's what he eats every morning. Unbelievable.
Oh my God.
That's like a
Jordan's
50.
Rare
That's like
physical
a
specimen.
$50 breakfast now.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. 24 eggs. Oh man, you can get a mortgage out for that?
But some teams he may have just washed out.
No doubt.
You know, if you don't develop him. I mean, he wasn't a football player.
And some people looked at him as a defensive lineman when he was cut, because he had never played. So
Well, you know who that reminds me of? Al Villanueva when he was with the Eagles.
Yeah.
Right, they didn't know
Absolutely.
where to put Al.
Yep.
You know, because I remember seeing him one year. How we were in the preseason, he was on the D line. And I was like, "This is your D lineman?"
So before I worked at the Eagles, I worked at Temple. So I
Okay.
worked at Temple football. We played Army every year.
Yeah.
He was a 6'7" wide receiver.
I say, wasn't he running
Yeah,
routes?
He was a
yeah,
wide
yeah,
runner,
yeah.
wide
Routes, I was
receiver
like,
in their
what?
option offense, and it was like, who's guarding that guy? Like how? Like we had 5'10" walk-on corner out there. I was like, this guy's got no shot. It was
Throw it high, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Exactly.
Anyways, our guest has been Fran Duffy of the All City Network. You can check out his work there. It's at F Duffy NFL, if you want to check that out on the X Twitter. I'm Dale Lolley here with Max Starks and Matt Williamson. We are live here at the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. We'll be back with more right after this. And welcome back. I am Dale Lolley here with Max Starks and Matt Williamson live at the NFL Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis where, well, it's day 2. Things starting to slow down a little bit here. All the guys have already done all the podium work. We heard all the defensive linemen, the edge rushers, all the guys that Max hates.
Yeah, I mean, and I keep bringing them up because they have guys that are draft eligible. I mean, listen, I've learned, over the years, like, don't discount them. I mean, they draft good talent and they keep talent in state. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's a main competitor with Florida is Florida State. I just revel in the fact that they sucked this year. It was just so great to call my cousin Travis Johnson and just, hey, how about those Knowles? But I mean, but there's talented guys, right? You said,
oh yeah,
and I think we kind of, like you said, you look at the team record and it kind of makes you turn a blind eye. But there's some talented dudes on these teams, Just like
I talked with Farmer about that at the Senior Bowl. Like, what was, you began the season, what were they, 11th? Something like that.
11.
High expectations.
Yeah,
high because they were undefeated the year before and they got snubbed from the playoff.
Right.
They would have been an easy team walk-in if the new playoff format, they would have been at least hosting a game.
They were
at
a year
home.
away. Yeah,
they're a year away from that, and then it fell apart when the Red Sea does open on teams getting into the postseason, and you just fell apart from the beginning. That Georgia Tech game was at Ireland. And they missed the field
you
goal.
Lose that one, then you get a nice long trip back to Florida, and you got to think about it the
miserable,
whole time.
and then you lose, and you continually lose, and
that was my question with Farmer. Like, what was the motivation once, you lose one? Okay, you still have a chance to rebound and get back into the conversation.
Because early in the year, right?
And you knew what the playoff format was this year. That wasn't going to kill you like a loss did the year before. It were no losses, and you didn't get in because you lost your quarterback. But then you lose a second game. And then a third one, it's like, okay,
snowballing. Huh?
This isn't. We're not going to make it now. So my motivation was, look, I just had to be out there and be the best that I could be. And it
mercenary mentality.
It
right?
wasn't the season that we wanted, but college football now creates that mercenary. Situation.
It does because you're realizing, okay, well, I'm trying to get to the next level, right? And also, how much turnover are you getting from year to year now because of NIL, because of the transfer portal? A guy that you were playing with a year ago that you had a good rhythm with could be gone to Louisville or Miami or somewhere else because he got offered a ton of cash.
Look at what Florida State lost from the previous year.
Yeah.
You lost Fisk, who was a transfer in. Yep. You lost the
Verse.
Ed.
Verse.
You lost those two guys off your front line.
So now it's like, man, I was good a year ago. Now it's like you said.
Now I'm getting all the attention.
Yeah, they now know who I am now. I was third on the list getting one-on-ones. Now I'm getting double teamed every play.
Yeah,
but like back to what Fran mentioned with Thomas, he still had a really good year. I mean, he could have easily cashed it in, and teams didn't attack him, and he made them pay when they did. I give that guy an extra boost. When things went bad, his play didn't fall off.
It wasn't because of him,
right? Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's where the mentality because it's not going to be.
Let's be honest. The big problem with Florida State this past season was really the offense.
They were terrible.
They were awful.
They were god awful. Listen. I can't tell you the smile that came upon my face. When I was watching them play, because I was like, I can't wait to dial this phone number. I was like, how bad are you guys now? Because for so many years, right, you've had running backs, you've had receivers, you've had linemen.
They pumped out so many
They
pros,
pumped
right?
out so many guys, and then to have the year that they had, and you're just like, but the talent's still there. Like, you have to kind of look at the helmet sticker, not look at the record. Like, Florida State is going to draft. They're going to have good corners. They're going to have good D linemen. They do it every year. Like, that's a place people know to go there. For that purpose, but
where are the running backs? Where are the receivers? Where's the quarterback?
Yeah, where's the complement to that to allow them to be that? Because once again, just like our defense, right? Our defense is great, but if you keep it on the field 36 minutes a game,
it's not going to be so great.
It's going to be terrible. You're going to have a dramatic fall off. But if they're on the field 28, 27 minutes a game, and your offense is chewing up clock, they're going to be all stars the entire season.
And that's one thing I think that gets overlooked a little bit. It's not necessarily that particular game that they just wore down at the end of this year. Well, no, it was the extra 20 snaps that they had to take in that game. And then the 20 in the game after that. And now it's an accumulation.
Now I've got 100 extra snaps that I didn't anticipate.
That's 2 games worth.
Yeah, exactly.
That you played.
Yeah.
And by week 15, it's like, okay, I feel like I've already played.
I played the full season,
Yeah.
guys. I told you I'd
Because
make it through the regular season.
They have to go hand in hand. They have to. Your
Yeah.
offense can't just give the ball back right away.
No.
Super Bowl.
Oh,
Think
Oh,
about
right,
yeah.
right.
Like
They couldn't get a first down.
They
Yeah,
couldn't
right.
get a first down. They couldn't get across the 50.
No, right. That
So,
first half was.
Why do you think that defense looked
Kansas
so
City's
amazing?
defense was holding. I mean, it was they gave up 10 points in the first half.
Yeah.
There was a defensive score. But
Yeah,
it just
Kansas City
snowballed
defense
from
did
there.
well, right?
Yeah, exactly. But by the second half, and you're like,
was over.
oh, yeah, by the way, Saquon Barkley's still back there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? This offensive line hasn't gone anywhere, and they're humongous, and they're
They
waiting.
got a lead, and now they're going to just start pounding.
Yeah,
pounding
In
it
the
down.
Steelers' case, tackling
Exactly.
Derrick Henry's getting really old, or
See,
the
the Eagles
I
game
mean-
against the Steelers.
Yeah.
Defense can't get off the field the last 10 minutes of the game.
Yeah,
No
and-
kidding.
And they
Yeah.
held the ball. I mean, on
Yeah.
top of that, it was like we're not just hitting you with strike plays. We're just chewing up clock, and it's like
Run.
a certain amount. How long can you push against? I'm sorry, I can't push against a semi truck that's rolling downhill, and you expect me to stop it for 10 minutes. It's not going to happen.
It's like doing the bench press here.
Yeah,
At some point, that bar's not going to go back up
Yeah,
again.
it's not 225 after the 30th rep, right? You know, I'm now moving in 6,000 plus pounds. I've moved already at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people forget, though, I mean, going into the losing streak, the Steelers were number one team in the league in time of possession.
Yeah. We
you
ground
saw the
people out.
formula.
Yeah.
You saw the formula. You got to control the football. You got to run the football for more than 4 yards a carry for the season, and get first downs and be timely and not turn the ball over and all those things, and then the defense can thrive.
And also, when it's not working, run, pass, first,
Yeah.
second, third down, and you're in 3rd and 8 because you didn't get the 4 yards of carry, right? And that starts to wear, and your defense is like, hey, man, we're going to get you the ball back. And I've been on the field. Now I can't get those interceptions like I did at the beginning of the season, right? Beginning of the season,
Don't get
ball
them in
hawks,
3rd and 8, right?
getting them back. We got them in those situations. Then it flipped course, and we couldn't really adjust to
I
it.
think the Steelers' defense was still, despite everything that happened at the end of the year, we're still one of the best teams in the league at getting 3 and outs.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
But your offense has to do something with that
Well, they
more
have
consistently.
to not do the same thing that
You
they were
can't-
doing
yeah.
to them. You can't have 3 and outs and,
Right.
and put them back on the field with bad field position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it became a problem on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, by the end, obviously. Neither one's you're happy with, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you do have to get more efficient on offense. It has
Complementary football
Yeah.
is the word, right?
Right.
And that's what we see when we watch the successful teams. They play complementary football. Even for the Kansas City Chiefs, right? I mean, it didn't look beautiful, but they chewed up time.
Yeah.
They gave their defense time to rest.
Because,
and-
I mean, Mahomes, I remember going into that game on Christmas Day, and I'm looking at that. They're converting 52% of their 3rd downs.
Yeah.
Their offense, they didn't have big plays, but they stayed on the field.
It was remarkable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and people forget because of the way the season ended, but for much of the year, complimentary football is why the Steelers were winning. I mean,
Yeah.
they were really good on special teams, blocking kicks, big plays. One of the best turnover differential teams in the league.
One of the best
Yeah.
3rd down defenses. in the
Right,
league.
absolutely. Red zone stuff too. I mean, like the in the margins, they were really good. They weren't a heavily penalized team. They're right in the middle.
Yeah.
So that's a hard way to live, but they understand. They don't have Mahomes. They can't just turn it on and off like that.
Yeah,
You got to win the margin.
Magic points aren't going to just come up on the board for you.
Right, right.
Every single
You
point
need to
that's
be
out
efficient.
there.
Yeah.
So getting back to that, again, I think some people look at this and say you can't draft a defensive player in the first round. You have to go offense. You can get the offensive playmakers in free agency.
Yes.
You can adjust and get those kind of things there. Your defense is getting older, and you can't. The splits with Cam Hayward on and off the field are real.
Oh, yeah. Especially
that-
against the run.
Against the run, it's a difference of a yard and a half when he's out there and when
Yeah.
he's not.
And that's first
he's
down,
not always
going
gonna
to
be out there
down,
for you.
right? You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Right.
And the other thing I don't think some people just look at it and say, well, they're paying the defense this much money. It's got to be the best in the league.
That makes me a little crazy.
They're paying
Contracts don't really work
the
that
difference
way.
in
Right.
the difference in the offense versus defense is because of the age difference between the
Yes.
offense and the defense.
Well,
The
they weren't paying the
defensive-
quarterback any money.
The quarterback's not making
Yeah,
any money.
exactly.
Your defensive guys, all your stars are on second contract guys. Yes, they're going to make more money.
Yeah,
right.
You know?
exactly.
And your offensive guys, these guys are all on first contracts. They're all rookies.
And
Young-
they're just talking about cap hits, too.
Yeah.
So if you sign a guy, you may have a lot invested in him on offense, but he's not a big cap hit that year because, he gave all his bonus up front. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So,
all of the cap magic happened to make it look as such. And I think, like you said, when you're not paying a quarterback, it looks a lot more myopic on the defensive side of the ball. It's going to be very lopsided.
It had to be the cheapest quarterback room in the league.
It was.
I mean, it was. Right,
in 2018, it was the other way.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah, so
you're paying this offense, it's going to be the best offense in the league.
It's like, no, but you got an older third contract quarterback who's
you had AB, you had Lev Bell making
you had all of those guys. So I mean, it's cyclical, right? I mean, it moves and ebbs and flows on which side, but at the end of the day, you do want things to be balanced, but that balance is going to come in a year here or a year there, and it's going to shift in the opposite direction. So
it's not the most important thing. You don't have to be 15th in spending on both sides.
No.
That's
and
not
I think,
that important.
And that's what matters, like when you're thinking about why the importance of getting a defensive guy in. Because, the untimely retirement of Stephon Tuitt, he was a guy you were looking at as being the next one. And that just derails things, just like when you lost. Like I talk about this, the Shazier loss, and then
we bring it up all the time.
Linebacker,
right.
when you're chasing.
No GM saw those things coming.
You can't plan for that.
No,
you can't plan for that. You hope that when I'm drafting this guy, I'm gonna get 5, 6, get him to the second contract. Now we got him for about 8 years. But when you have a traumatic event that happens, it messes up the house of cards.
Yeah.
And so now we got to go back to
a hit first-round pick and a hit second-round pick that would probably be on the team right now, or you'd be
Still
looking for their replacements.
Yeah, you would now be getting a backup for him, and now you're trying to find a starter. So therefore, the onus is a little bit more. And defensive
or if you knew
line
this was coming on to it, you would have kept Hargrave. There's ripple effects too.
Yeah, because
you don't trade up for Bush
if
you have Shazier,
or.
Of course,
exactly.
And then you'd have something else with you wouldn't have that Bush trade up hurt them bad.
It did. It put them behind, and like you said, for 12 games, it was amazing. You're like, I think we got our guy. Then he gets injured.
We invested a lot in this dude, and it didn't work out.
It didn't work out. So, I mean, you have to keep batting, right? Just like Fran was talking, you're not going to bat 1,000, but I need you to hit on 60% of these, and those are ones that end up bottoming out at 0. So, defense is the priority because we know what we can do when they're fresh and they're healthy. We saw it. But when you tire out, you don't have the rotation, you don't have the depth there. Unlike a Philly, I hate to say it, but when you're the champ, you got to make the comp. They can roll 2 straight lines out there, and it's fine. And like you said, they're all on first contract guys. They're all young dudes that have hit. So we got to get back to that, and that's what we're trying to do here. That's why you got to take a couple bites at the apple at defensive line, especially in a year where it's super
plentiful.
Deep. If it's deep, you got to go fishing, right? You want a marlin? I'm fine with a sailfish.
I mean, as great as Cam Hayward is, he's hard to count on. I mean, that's a scary proposition to be that reliant on a phenomenal all-time great Steeler because he's only one guy and he's older.
And last year was different than the year before, right?
Much for him.
So, you know what I'm saying? So the year before, he's got multiple injuries. He's out there. It doesn't look good. You're like, oh, man, he's on the end. But then you watch this year, you're like, oh, my God, he's amazing. And it's like we can't depend on that. You can't live and die on one player, like how we lived on and died on T.J. Watt. Like you need an Alex Highsmith to come along and be that burden.
And then a Herbig.
And then a Herbig.
Right.
because you need 3 of those guys in the rotation. Just like we don't have those
get
guys.
hurt.
We got 2 guys on the defensive line that we can really depend on, and question marks behind them. You need to get a little bit more depth to where those question marks at least become periods. I'm not asking for exclamation points yet, but I need a period or not a comma.
Absolutely. He is Max Starks. That's Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. We are live here at the NFL Scouting Combine here on Steelers Nation Radio and Fox Sports Pittsburgh. We will be here until 5 o'clock, so that's going to do it for another hour. We have 1 hour left here of our live coverage for today. You can also check out our video on YouTube. We got Tyler Vittmeyer over here running that. An extended drive on YouTube, giving people a little bit more of what they want. And but we're going to take a break right now because some of us have to go to the potty.
Okay. That's true. Water break.
Bring it down the home
Rub us
stretch.
down a little bit and come back for the last hour. We'll do that right after this. Welcome back. I am Dale Lolley here with Max Starks and Matt Williamson here live at the NFL Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis. And, back for our final hour here of live coverage of the Combine and everything that is going on. And, these first 2 days have been a little quiet in terms of news.
A lot of rumors, and this guy can request trade, and this dude might get cut, and those type of things. But you don't hear a whole lot about the prospects yet.
Not yet.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
yet.
yeah.
But some of the stuff with guys moving on. Apparently, the Saints have said that right now they don't have any intention of trading Derek Carr.
He's hard to trade.
Yeah, I mean they actually
the cap
lose
hit
money
is
on
so
the cap.
crazy, right?
Their cap situation
Is as bad as I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's terrible.
I don't know. I don't know how Mickey Loomis, who's been there forever.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been the cap wizard for the because they.
Well, he had been until now. It's like Mickey, what were you doing with some of these deals?
How off on the sauce were you? You know,
Yeah.
Because now it's like
Every day's party time in New Orleans.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Mardi Gras every day, but like you said, who's going to clean up the mess, right?
Yeah.
You know, and now he's having to clean
The
up
mess
the
is
streets.
here. Yeah.
The mess is here, and they're in cap hell. There's no other way of putting it. You know, you
They don't
strung it
even have
together
easy
for years.
solutions.
No, I mean, they've got how much do they have to cut to get because
Over
they're not
40 million.
compliant. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're not compliant at
In the
all.
next 10 days.
Yeah, you got to cut 40 million. So I'm looking at Cam Jordan. Probably is a guy that's probably a cap casualty.
The
easily.
thing is, it doesn't. They structured these contracts that it doesn't even get you the relief you would think.
No.
Because they've pushed. I mean, they've really maxed out the credit cards. Like,
Yeah.
you're right. I mean, Jordan and Demario Davis and the Honey
Yeah.
Badger. I mean, these are older dudes that make money, but the cap relief just cutting them outright. But pre-June 1 isn't that great.
No, I think you only save, like, with those three guys, I think you save, like, maybe 17, 18 million. I was looking
Right.
at it the other day.
Yeah, they're
awful.
They need to cut $47 million
I
just
mean,
to get just to get to zero.
so I heard this
Yeah.
the other day. I mean, like Michael Thomas is eating up 4.7% of their cap. He hasn't been good for 5 years.
No.
You know what I mean?
He hasn't
Like,
played football
he
in
hasn't
5
even
years.
played for 3 years, something like that. Right. I
And-
mean, like,
and this
and
was a guy
Jordan's
we're
going to be
talking
eaten
about.
up, and I mean, for years and years, these guys are going to be on the
Yeah,
books.
yeah, they're gonna feel the ghosts of these players for years to come. And it was like you extended, you kick can down the road, kick
Because
can down
they
the road.
went for it.
Yeah,
They-
and they
they
do
tried.
have a ring to show for it. I mean, it was
Years
one, and
ago.
it was a long
Yeah,
time ago.
I
right.
mean, that was Hurricane Katrina, right after Hurricane Katrina
Right.
hit.
The
I mean,
Steelers have won more recently, I think.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we
I
have.
mean, the way they've handled the last 5 years is just irresponsible, honestly.
Yeah.
And it really is.
I mean, just even from the Dennis Allen pick and Sean Payton just kind of giving it to him, leaving, and then
Yeah.
coming back.
They just
and
keep doing the same thing.
yeah, you just keep I mean, and we talk about what's the definition of insanity, right?
Right.
Doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result.
Yeah.
And that's what they've done.
And this is something where you see a lot of the Steelers just they're trying to do the same things over and over again, overlooking the fact in the last 4 or 5 years we've seen them trade a first-round draft pick for a player, which
Yeah.
they hadn't done since the '60s.
Yeah.
Trading up twice in that time period to get a player. Now you can argue who the player was that they traded up
Yeah.
to get.
But the act.
The act of moving
Yeah.
up to go get a player.
I mean, the last time they did that was Polamalu, right?
Yeah,
Right.
They fired an offensive coordinator in the middle of a season. They hadn't never done that before.
Never. That was a precedent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a new GM.
They've had 2 GMs in that period.
Right.
They've let's see what else.
Well, they've definitely been more active in free agency.
They've been
than
The
they used
way
to
more
be.
active
last
in
3
free agency.
years, they've flipped this roster 50% or better in both of the years that Omar Khan's been the GM. We saw 53 new players last year, and we saw 45 the year before that. So that's not doing
That's not doing
business
the
as
same
usual.
thing over
right,
and over
right,
again.
right.
Yeah.
That's not being the Saints here and just kicking the can down the road. That's not being the Browns and kicking the can down the road. No, that's trying to get to do something different than what you had been doing.
And you had the cheapest quarterback room with a brand new quarterback room,
Yeah, and a
And
new offensive coordinator.
new OC, and complete overhaul. Like that's something like these are different things. You might think it's the same result because you look at the record and it looks
Right.
very similar.
Right.
But what's going on behind the curtain is completely different. Like the hamster on the wheel, they're changing out the hamsters
Yeah.
running on the wheel.
Well, unfortunately, the thing that isn't the same is Seven's not back there.
Yeah,
There's been a lot of quarterbacks in the
Yeah.
last couple of years, too.
and we've
that's-
gotten to the playoffs with 5 different quarterbacks.
Which is bonkers, right.
that's ridiculous.
Right. I mean, we're not even talking about Duck. And, I mean, like, going
Yeah, we're
back,
not
there's
going
been a
Duck,
lot of
Dobbs,
dudes
all
taking
those
snaps
dudes,
here
yeah.
since Seven's, elbow injury.
Yeah. So I mean,
And
so
if you could firm that up, well, then just keep doing the same thing at that position.
exactly because
You
you're
know?
seeing success, and we're not falling back to the beginning of time. We're not going back to the Stone Age like a lot of these teams have to do, year in and year. Like, hey, Cincinnati, they got Joe Burrow. But do you know how bad you had to be
They
to
had
get
to be
Joe
the
Burrow?
worst team in the league.
And we
get
talk
Joe
about
right year.
Mike Tomlin, what he said to Chase Young, right, on the Commanders' rookie year. I don't ever want to be bad enough that I can draft you.
Not only did they have to be bad enough to get Joe Burrow the first year, they had to be bad enough the next year to get Jamar Chase.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because he was fifth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was like, and then you think about if you're the Carolina Panthers, right? Anisha's not over there today. Okay.
No, good.
Apparently, I called up. Like, really, us? I was like, yeah. Hey, you got Bryce Young. You drafted first like 2 years in a row, and then you traded away one of them. But to be there, to be Jacksonville.
You know how many picks they've had in the top 6 in the last 20 years or so?
Yeah,
right.
It's like, I don't want to be that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
I'm sorry. That's not the standard that this organization has created. And the standard's not the same. But we've been in the playoffs, right? Right? I mean,
you win more games than you lose.
We win
you
more than
been
we
5
lose.
and 12.
Yeah,
You haven't been 6 and 11.
We've never been below 500 in once in the 21st century. Okay, guys? 25 years, one below 500 season, and they got you Ben Roethlisberger, and then you haven't turned back since.
And you think our listeners are unhappy about how the playoffs have gone? Sure. How thrilled do you think they'd be on Thanksgiving next year if you've one win? You know what I mean?
Exactly,
2 wins.
Exactly.
Oh, we lost by 20 again. Great,
Yeah, exactly. And the stadium's still going to get filled, right? Because you're putting a competitive product out there.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you don't win on the competition. We've had the toughest schedule in the NFL the last 2 years as well.
Mm-hmm.
You have to think about that. Like, we're not getting we got the New York Giants, but we still had to trade that to get the Eagles, the Ravens, and the Chiefs in an 11-day span in the process because people want to see us on primetime. So that kills you. I would love to have been in the Ravens situation where I got the Giants on the front end and some other 500 team as a third game. Yeah, but you're talking top 3 of the 5 teams in the NFL at that point, and you're trying to make a run. That's tough to do.
Yeah.
And it's not going to get any easier. We're going to have to go to Ireland next year and play a game overseas, which we haven't done since the year I left was a year we went over to England. And then we had Thanksgiving Day. Like that, I was like 2 things I didn't get to accomplish. Right.
Let's talk about So when they went to London, when we went to London, and pull the curtain back, I was on the team flight at that time, even though I didn't work for the team. They still a lot of the
it would have been nice to have
a lot of the media traveled.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of the media traveled at that time with the team, and it was a big flight. That trip going overnight, Thursday night, and getting there Friday morning. I can tell you for a fact I was still tired on Sunday.
Yes.
Let alone a player.
Let alone you guys having to play a football game.
Play a football game, different, completely, vastly different time zone because you're moving ahead. Normally when you play in the East Coast, you don't move any further forward.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you always
that,
gain time back because
Right.
we play west. And so now you're moving further east. That time, your body is not adjusted. And to go over as late now, I'm hoping this year coming up, they decide to go over earlier.
That was my point.
You need to because you got to acclimate for that. Like it's a shock to the system to play cross-continental. You want to cross an entire ocean in 3 other time zones
to play
to get
8 a.m. on your body clock or whatever.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
weird.
Which I mean, let's face it. Regular season, 8 o'clock. I'm just walking to meetings. I'm getting my second cup of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
And even on game day,
I'm not asked to move at that time and move effectively and competitively. So, I mean, there's an adjustment that's needed. And so, I mean, the Steelers, I'm not going to sit there and try and tell them what to do. I mean, they have all the analysts and the sleep study specialists all in the staff now. But I'd head over on a Monday or a Tuesday just to get the guys acclimated, because you're in a new place. I hate to say it, cuisine's completely different. The standards of everything.
Weather's a little different. The field
weather's
surface
different.
is very different.
The surface you don't know because it's a soccer / Gaelic games field.
Right.
Oh, there's no soccer on that field.
Oh, it's not? Yeah, whatever.
It's all Gaelic Gaelic sports.
Gaelic sports.
What cleats am I wearing?
And what type of grass is it? It's not the Bermuda that you get over here.
Yeah.
They have a different. So it takes time to get adjusted to that. Where you're practicing, it's not your normal practice facility.
No. You're not sleeping in your own bed. You're not doing the same routine. Right.
Yeah, so there's a lot that goes into it. Hopefully the Steelers learned that lesson from the last trip. Hey, we need to go over there a little bit earlier to get acclimated.
To your point, I think if I remember correctly that week, the Vikings had gone on Tuesday.
Yes, they got over there earlier than the Steelers
They had
did.
the 2-day head start, and you guys, quite frankly, looked like you were
Yeah.
still on Eastern
Look, the
Standard Time.
sleepier of the
Yeah,
road,
exactly. I had the nightcap and the long john on. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what is this you speak of? This is football? yeah, no, not the best showing. And they haven't been back since.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a long time coming, and especially this is the first time you're playing Ireland since what, 96 exhibition game, I believe was the last
97,
time.
yeah.
97, yeah. So it's a lot riding on this, right? I mean, and the Steelers have put a lot into, you know, the goodwill in the community there in Ireland to have this opportunity. And of course, we know the family ties from the organization. So you want to put your best foot forward, and you know, let's make this a celebration. Let's go over there early and get ready for the game.
And I think you can make that an advantage for you, particularly if you're playing, let's say it's Green Bay or Seattle.
Yeah.
One of the teams, you can make that a huge advantage.
Yes.
If it's one of those teams who are going even another 1 or 2 time zones.
Yeah, exactly, because you're not going to get anybody in the Eastern. We're not trading a division game for that. We're not going to trade a team that's close, that's a normal draw for us, you know, distance-wise, you know, because you want that home game, especially. So it's like, yeah, let's take a Green Bay. Let's take a Seattle, especially Seattle. I'm like, I 3-hour time zone difference on top of the other 3 that you're going to have. Yeah, I want them feeling like they're playing at 2 a.m. in the morning. Like, hey, how's it feel to leave the club and go straight to the field? You know, I need that type of feel for the opponent that I'm playing. So hopefully the schedule makers are gracious in that. You have to look up to the sky.
After
and
doing
pray.
what they did
gracious
last
this
year.
year.
After the 3-11, I mean that was a meat grinder. I mean, that was the most, you know, and I know we talk about, hey, it's football. It's not, you know, it's not meant to be fair. That was the most unfair schedule of all of it. Because even when I told my buddies at other teams or I talked to my friend, how the heck are you doing that? I don't know how they're doing it. I know just for me as a broadcaster sitting on the sidelines.
I'm tired.
It sucks, and I'm tired. My feet hurt, and I'm on a plane. I'm like, I can't imagine what the guys are going through because you got one home game, you know, that was
The first 2 were road games.
the first 2 are road, and then the one home game on Christmas Day, a Wednesday. Football's not meant to be played on that day of the week. I'm sorry.
Yep.
You know, the Steelers played on 5 of the 7 available days of the week, and the only to be topped by Kansas City and Philadelphia, who played on Friday,
Yeah.
right? That was it.
Yeah.
That was it. Everybody else played 6 out of the 7 days of the week. We played 5. We played the third most games different days of the week than anybody in the NFL.
Yeah, it's strange.
On top of having the toughest schedule.
And the Ravens had to deal with some stuff like that too. But I bet
Yeah.
most of our listeners don't know this. I mean, in terms of rest advantage against your opponent, the
Yeah.
Ravens had the greatest rest advantage in NFL history in
Yeah.
the Super Bowl era. You know, like if I played a game with 7 days rest and they played a 6 days rest, I'm +1.
Yeah.
They were +15 this year. So they almost always had a rest
They had
advantage against
2
their
extra
advantage.
weeks off rest.
Yeah,
So they helped
really
them in
quick.
other ways, even though they
and
stressed
2
them
of their
in that
3
section.
games in that 11-game span were home games.
Yeah.
Right,
The
right.
furthest they went was Texas. You know, and that was the third
Mm-hmm.
one. You know what I'm saying? So you had the Giants at home, you had Steelers at home, and then you go to the Texans. And that Texans team was – I just remembered who the third
Floundering,
team was.
yeah. Yeah.
They were floundering at that point. They didn't know which way was up. But they were in the AFC South, so they were going to go to the playoffs and get a home game.
That's what when people say, well, you know, those other teams had to do it too. They didn't have to play the Eagles, Ravens, and Chiefs.
No, they did not.
Right.
Yeah. Like I said, top 3 of the 5 teams, you know, this season.
Maybe
And
the 3 best teams in the league.
And we played the 2 Super Bowl contenders.
Right.
Yeah.
In that 11-day span.
Houston had Miami at home.
Yeah, exactly.
Kansas
Like, come
City
on.
played at Cleveland.
And no one would have been shocked if the Ravens
Yeah.
ended up in the Super Bowl this year. They were playing phenomenal
They're
football.
playing,
that
and
year.
like you
Right.
said, with that rest advantage,
Right.
you
It
should
helped
have
them
been.
a little bit better.
You
Right.
should have
right.
helped them.
Yep.
So
Throughout
you
the
know,
course of the year, they
yeah.
had a
So it's
massive
just
rest
it
advantage.
was a tough situation to be in, and that was frustrating.
Yeah,
You know.
absolutely.
We could talk about it now since the season's over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about rest coming out of that game?
Would
Yeah.
you hope they have a bye after?
I would like a bye. I
Yeah.
hate the time of year. I hate getting those week 3 through 5 buys.
Yeah.
But I think for an overseas game, you want that because it resets you back to 0. Because if you come back after playing that game and then you got to go to Denver or somewhere, you know what I'm saying, and then fly across country again, or if your home game is now slated earlier, you know, I mean, I would
1
love.
o'clock on the following Sunday. is
Yeah,
like-
it would suck. I would love now if it's not a bye, I would love a Monday nighter.
Yeah, at least give me the day.
Yeah, give me the extra
Right,
day
right.
of it, but don't give me Thursday. Don't give
Oh.
me Sunday 1 p.m.
Yeah, 'cause
for
you're
that
not getting
game.
back
Or a
from
road
that-
game for
You're not
that
getting
matter.
back
It
from
should
that
be a
game
home game.
until Monday at some point.
Yes,
sometime
exactly.
during that day, and it could just be the You shot your entire Monday.
Yeah, exactly. Your Monday's shot. You don't get that day back because, yeah, you're getting a couple of hours back. But the time on the plane, the dehydration, people don't really talk about the science behind it. The dehydration that happens when you're in a pressurized cabin in the sky for multiple hours, like that saps all of your available, hydration and the water in your body. And then it takes a day just to get yourself back to normal.
Yeah.
And you've already lost Monday. Because normally it's Monday that you're doing that because you played a Sunday game. So Monday you get that, and then you get Tuesday off. So you've gotten 2 days off. Now you're only getting 1 day off, and your body's all messed up from the time difference. You're waking up at 5 a.m., what you think is 5 a.m. is like, oh, no, this is only 2. What? Oh, God, I got to go back to sleep, and then you're trying to get to work. It's a whole issue involved with all of that. So I pray that they do get a bye or a Monday night game after that.
Certainly shouldn't go on the road. I mean, I'm sure
Definitely
they won't.
not on the
I'm
road.
sure they won't.
Yeah, it has to be a home game.
Yeah.
I mean, you gave up a home game for this one, but you want back-to-back homes theoretically in that situation.
Because that's going to be the problem. It's probably going to be sometime in after the second week of the season in September to mid-October somewhere.
It's not going to be late.
Yeah. You don't want to necessarily have your bye that early in the season.
Sure. No doubt.
Yeah. Nobody ever turns down a bye. There's never a bad week for a bye week. But at the same time,
but it could be a long
you don't want to have to
stretch
look at it and go, man, we got to play 12 consecutive games coming out of this.
Exactly.
Going into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right.
Or you're hoping for that Thursday nighter to fall later in the year so you can get that mini bye.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But that's the other thing that you worry about.
Then you got to play the 2 games. And
then you got to play those 2 short games, right?
Yeah.
And then now it's like, can I get those as homes? No, you're not going to. You're probably going to be on the road.
On the road,
Yeah. For those games. I'll wait till the next segment. I'll look up just what the potential teams are. So looking at the potential away travel for the season. But, yeah, all of that kind of plays into it. Because I remember, what was that? Was it 2 years ago where we didn't cross the Mississippi the whole season?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to get that this year.
No.
Because Green Bay alone and, knowing that you have, Seattle on the list.
I know Detroit's on the list.
Yeah.
Or Detroit here. Detroit's in Pittsburgh. I think.
Detroit's
no,
in
we go to Detroit.
No, we go to Detroit and we go to Minnesota. No.
I think Minnesota could potentially be the overseas game.
Minnesota and Green Bay come to us because we went to them.
Because they could potentially be the Ireland game.
Yeah, they could potentially be the Ireland game.
Yeah.
And then, we go to Detroit, and then the other team, Chicago. We go to Chicago.
Yeah. So, anyways, let's get to another break.
Yeah.
That's Max Starks. That's also Matt Williamson. And I am Dale Lolley. And this is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network and Steelers Nation Radio and, of course, Fox Sports Pittsburgh. And we are live from the NFL Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis, where we will continue our coverage right after this. And we are live here from the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis, where tomorrow everything will start to take place on the field in terms of workouts, things of that nature. They'll continue to do some meetings and things of that nature tonight.
Yeah.
And, meetings take place that involve current players as well. News today, the Giants met with the representatives for Matthew Stafford here in Indianapolis. There's also a report that Matthew Stafford met with Tom Brady in Montana.
Yeah, I heard that.
Recently.
Yeah, the Raiders.
Oh, Big Sky Country.
That's a strange one to me. Like, how about this? How about we'll go meet in I can't even think of a town in Montana.
Bozeman.
Bozeman, yeah.
Bozeman, right. There you go.
You would think I've been up there that I would know those towns, but, I mean, driving up there, it all looks the same. Yeah.
That is an odd one. But they both have a lot of money. It's a cool place, right.
I mean, they probably wouldn't hung out at Kevin Costner's ranch or something.
I
don't know. Yeah, Jackson Hole's not that far of a drive from there.
The Yellowstone,
Yeah.
I think Stafford could get moved. I'm starting to believe that more and more. I don't think this is just a ploy by the Rams. I mean,
no.
I tend to think he won't end up here, but I'm sure the Steelers at least have kicked the
gotta
tires or at least called.
Think about it.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
As
I'm
Omar
sure
Khan
they've
said
rubbed
yesterday, like all options are on the table until you have somebody under contract.
I mean, I'd be very intrigued by it, but if you're the Raiders or Giants, though, you're not Matthew Stafford away from being a contender.
No.
I mean, I don't quite understand that.
If you're Matthew Stafford, is that where you want to go? You've been on bad teams before. You were in Detroit 10 years.
Your Lions career. Or is it I've accomplished everything I've done, right? I've won the Super Bowl. I've gotten to the mountaintop. I've had successful runs with the team. maybe this is my ride off into the sunset. Collect a lot of cash.
Yeah, right.
And then just be okay. And
Send me somewhere where the city's not on fire.
Yes, exactly. That is true. Yeah, I do not want to play my home playoff game in a different city.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let's face it, Las Vegas is a fun place.
It is.
It's a fun place.
People like New York too.
Yeah, and they love NYC. I mean, go get you a slice, and go catch a Broadway show, whatever. So I mean, both of those cities are attractive living cities.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I know his wife is very active in social media too, and maybe that's part of it. I'm sure it is a factor,
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
maybe you can turn one of the teams around. I don't know, but it just seems.
And both of those are missing a franchise name.
Exactly. They need somebody to put it in the billboard.
Yeah.
Right.
Insert name here, and your name is on Fifth Avenue, right, in New York. You're on the Strip in Vegas, holding a football. That's a lot of money out there on the tables. If you're a decent dude we know he does endorsements. He's doing the Sleep Number with his wife,
right? Exactly.
On TV. So he's probably like, hey, let me just get some endorsements, get some visibility, let my wife do some stuff, and we can make this work. And heck, I don't mind having to be able to call Tom Brady whenever I want if I'm there, or if I'm in New York, I can get to anything I need to, because I'm the attraction and I have the resume to back it up. Now, if he was leaving Detroit, different story, right? Yeah. It's the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, question mark about the team, and losses to Aaron Rodgers in overtime on untimed downs. But he's changed that image about himself, so you wonder if that's a possibility.
The Raiders also have a ton of cap space. I mean, if you were
they ain't paying nobody except for Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby.
Max Crosby. So if he gets traded to the Raiders, maybe he can start recruiting people too. I mean, get guys to come with him. Yeah. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of the thought process of the two teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Vegas, they just need something. They need a splash.
They need a spark back.
They need a name, and they don't have any name. Like you said,
and maybe the young kid in Vegas is like they don't have any fans from their hometown.
No, they don't.
You know what I mean? Maybe
everybody comes from out of town. I
mean,
granted, the Raiders fans do travel from Oakland every week, so technically they're traveling. But the apathy, like if I don't see anything exciting on the field, why do I want to drive?
It's one of the reasons why they traded for AB. When they traded for AB, because they were moving into Vegas, and they're like, we need an attraction.
Yeah,
we need a guy.
Name.
That's why they went out and got Devontae Adams. We need a guy.
And they went for Chandler Jones as well. It just didn't work out.
It didn't work out.
You know what I'm saying? So they've tried, but they've just had bad tries. Like, and a lot of that's Mayock, right? That was there as GM. But it's like, okay, now we have Tom Brady in the building. He's in the ear of Mark Davis, right? You can kind of curb some of the Al Davis tendencies around and try and make them a formidable team with a little less, and you have to build on it, but you need a name to build around, and I think that is smart that the Raiders are going after that, right?
And
Pete
you have
Carroll. You have Pete Carroll there.
Professional. I mean, you're right.
Yeah,
I mean, since Brady's been there, he's got Pete Carroll, who might end up in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And Ohio State's coordinator, Chip Kelly, who's now the highest-paid coordinator in the league. Yeah. I don't know if he's the best one in the league, but he was highly sought after if you had to pay him that much.
And he left the national
championship
team.
And if he can add Matthew Stafford to that, I mean, you got a coach, coordinator, quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's a start.
And that's a good swing after
building a culture,
Yeah,
we talk about culture here all the time. I mean, at least build a culture.
Let me ask you this, Max, as somebody who does broadcasting. Is it fair that Brady is allowed to own part of a team and also still continue to broadcast?
I don't think he's
allowed to go to practices, though.
He can't go to practices. He can't watch, film. He can only do this time of year stuff.
Yeah.
But the percentage that he owns versus what he's making contractually, well, make one decision or the other. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, you're not hurting for money, so,
By all accounts, though, Mark Davis has given Brady a lot of leeway, even though he's not a majority owner.
Yeah, he has a lot of control.
He's lending his name to the what
franchise.
They're doing. Yeah.
I don't like it. It feels a little icky because he's not allowed at that practice, but he's allowed at everybody else's practices.
Yeah.
And you don't think that, hey, if the Raiders play the Dolphins in 2 weeks and you're covering the Dolphins the week before and you're at practice.
Right.
I'm just saying.
This is what I saw.
This
he's
is
a pretty sharp football mind.
Yeah,
he knows
exactly.
what to look
and
for.
he can see it and he can recite it. He's not down there taking Polly Pocket notebook, notes. He's going to be able to say, boom, well, hey, this is one of the things they struggle with. When you're going up against Phillips, hey, this is what you do to get him out of it. He
calls
can
Pete
talk
Carroll
them
on
through
his way home to the hotel.
Calls Pete or calls Matt Stafford, right?
Sure,
I mean, if he's hanging out with him in Montana and he ends up as your QB, y'all got a friendly relationship.
Their right cornerback just doesn't see this.
Throw digs all day on that dude.
Yeah.
He
Those
can't
Patriot
react.
teams never bent the rules, though, or anything.
No, of course, they were above board.
They would never think of
Yeah,
something
they would
like
never
that.
think
Right,
it's
right.
like a spy cam in his tie. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But, I mean,
It is sticky, though.
It is very sticky, and I'm surprised the league hasn't said anything, right? Because you're afforded proprietary knowledge as a broadcaster. And I know even from my perspective, even as a
you've done
radio
both.
guy,
Right, right.
and I've done television, if I get to interview guys before the game, right? I get to talk to these guys. I get to see how their minds think and make judgments. And also, coaches
I'll
put,
say the coaches
put trust,
stuff, too,
put
right.
trust in me as well. Like, I mean, like I talk about and kid about Lane Kiffin, but Lane, because we were friends when I was doing broadcast coverage, he'd send me his metrics book up in the booth. And I could so I knew exactly what he was going to do on fourth down coverages or whatever it was going to be. I knew because it helped me in my broadcast, to be able to predict and kind of feel these things out. I'm like, if you're giving, and imagine what you're giving Tom Brady. I'm just me.
Yeah, right.
But
I
you're
mean,
giving
this
a guy
is
like
maybe the greatest football player. of all
everybody
time.
looks up to.
Right.
Yeah, and they're going to give him whatever he asks, and he knows what questions to ask because he's been in that position. So that's where I'm like, it's sticky. Now, granted, the Raiders do suck right now, but if they start to build, how much longer can you allow them to toe the line between broadcaster, behind-the-scenes guy, as well as having a very active role within a franchise in the sport that you're also calling for?
Here's the thing. He may not be able to go to the practice.
Yeah.
But everybody else on his broadcast team does, and you don't think they talk about stuff?
Oh,
sure.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's just it's just human nature. Like, hey, on the broadcast tomorrow, they're probably going to run such and such, or here's what they said they were going to do in this situation.
Yeah.
And now you know.
Well, and Tom and I talked before because they had the Philly game. Tom and I talked because Aaron's one of my classmates from college, Aaron Andrews. So we're sitting there. It was my first time meeting him, Burkhardt, and all those guys. And we sat down. We had a conversation. We were just talking about what we want to see and everything else. He's a super sharp dude, so it's going to come up as a question. It's going to come up as a question.
And it should.
It wouldn't shock you if they make him choose at some
point. And integrity time, I get Fox gave you a boatload of money, and they offer this contract was outstanding, until you decided to retire. But
one or the other.
Once you enter the realm of ownership, like John Stallworth wasn't calling games after he got a percentage ownership of the Steelers. And no other owner that I know, that was a former player or anything else that bought into, they weren't doing active. This is the first time this has ever been done.
They weren't other people's facilities or.
Yeah, every single week.
Whoever you're calling in week 17, does he mention to the guy, hey, we might trade for Matthew Stafford. You want to be a Raider?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, who knows, right? Yeah.
And because he's interviewing Matt. He knows Matt very well. Yeah. Hence why they have a relationship and why they're hanging out in Montana.
It's almost like
he's allowed to have friends like everybody else.
You're allowed to have friends, but it's different. You have to be on one side or the other.
Yeah,
it's almost like insider trading because,
yes,
again, what if they hadn't given Stafford the okay to go talk to another team? He's an owner.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Let's face it. Yeah, that is more than legal tampering.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's not March 10th we're talking about this, right?
Right.
We're talking about this at February 25th, 26th.
This would be like if you took all your millions of dollars that Max Starks has and said, I'm gonna buy partial ownership in the Steelers, but I'm still gonna continue to do this. I'm gonna continue to do Westwood 1 and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It creates problems.
It creates issues. It makes it sticky, especially when you're the color analyst. It's like I'm a sideline guy for the Steelers, but everywhere else in this world, when I work, I'm a color analyst. So, and like I said, when I've seen these other games, I get to go down on the field pregame. I get to go talk to these guys and interview them. And you're talking to the head coach, OCs, and so you're getting an intimate knowledge about them. And when I know, especially if I'm calling games in the AFC, I've got the Raiders back here. If I was a Steelers guy, it's and I got I had for a couple of years, I had Cleveland-Cincinnati game. What I'm saying, you don't think I'm not talking about what I saw in the Cleveland-Cincinnati game before we played them? We played Green Bay. I told you I had that Green Bay LA game right before they played the Steelers. I'm referencing last week's stuff in my broadcast this week, and when I'm talking to Wolf and those guys, hey, this is what I saw last week, man. We got to watch out for it. Hopefully it happens.
Yeah.
Same thing's going to go on. And like you said, having an ownership stake in that, you have a vested interest. Your success
Yeah, absolutely.
is tied to how well they're successful.
You're going to make money off of how successful your team is.
Exactly.
He's like the most competitive human being on the planet. He's going to do anything to win.
Exactly.
Yeah, right,
exactly.
right.
You know, he's he's
proven.
Michael Jordan X.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that? Right.
Yeah. So they're going to have. He's going to be forced to make a decision because just integrity of the game and optics just aren't great with that.
Yeah.
I bet he picks ownership.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Heck yeah.
Right.
It's like, yeah. Do I want the 100 times multiplier? Or do I want the 10,000 times multiplier?
Do I want to hire coaches and pick up quarterbacks, or do I want to travel around calling games?
Do I want to
Right.
prove that I can do it from this level as well as what I did actively on the field?
Yeah. Like,
that competitive edge kicks in.
Right.
There's no competition in broadcasting.
right.
You're already on the A crew. You're on the top crew.
You got put in at the top level.
Yeah. You inserted immediately to number one, and you called your first Super Bowl your first year of broadcasting.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That
Like,
doesn't happen for everybody else.
No. I mean, it's a long road to get to that place, and you just got inserted because, let's face it, you've got the brain and you have the resume that goes with it. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, it'll be a matter of time.
Yeah. It's an odd situation.
It really is. Let's get to another break here before we come back to close out the show. That is Max Starks. I'm here with Matt Williamson as well, and I'm Dale Lolley. We are live at the NFL Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis. They're playing the Senior Bowl game over there on the
there we
on
go.
the TV. A little bit of preview of what we're going to see here. I guess that's on the NFL Network.
It is.
But let's get to a break. We will be back with more right after this. And we are back. I am Dale Lolley here with Max Starks and Matt Williamson at the NFL Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis, the Lucas Oil Stadium just on the other side of the street. A short tunnel walk from here.
Mm-hmm.
Just go down underneath the street. It's really a cool setup.
It is a cool setup. The whole
It's
city.
awesome. I mean, this city's made for combine.
Conventions.
And conventions. I mean, this is a great – I mean, even when they had the Super Bowl here, like the movement around town was very easy.
So we changed hotels this year from where we usually stay.
Yeah.
And I went down they have breakfast at our hotel, and I went down to breakfast, and I saw them like where I was sitting at in the breakfast area. I'm like, that looks like it's a tunnel over to they have the tunnel system
for the mall or
Graves
whatever.
Tunnel,
that main. Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm going to check that out and see if there is an entrance into the walkways. Lo and behold, there was.
You never have to go outside here.
You don't.
No.
I mean, you really
we
don't.
would
It's
not
crazy,
have
right.
to leave, get wet. It was raining today. Wouldn't have had to go outdoors at all.
Right.
That's
It's
right.
bonkers.
Hence why
And
I
there's
can wear
been some
shorts.
chilly combines or some really windy ones,
Oh,
too.
yeah.
where it's
Oh,
like,
man, yeah, it's miserable.
Yeah.
And like you said, and we've stayed elsewhere, but it's like the longest walk
It's
ever.
a long walk.
It's a long walk.
Oh, it's a good 20 minutes.
yeah,
You get your
exactly.
steps
But
in, yeah.
again, you never
Yeah.
have to go outdoors.
You don't have to
No,
go
no.
outdoors, but it's like
I
it's
know
a
the
long
walk like the back of my hand. Like, all right,
Yeah.
you go down here, and then there's the carpet that looked like the kid in The Shining's on it. And
exactly. Yeah.
Let's play, Danny.
yeah.
But Embassy Suites is right there
Yeah.
where we're
Yeah,
at.
where
I
we're
mean,
at, it's great.
It's so close. I mean, it's a
We're in the
block and a
middle of
half
everything,
away. Yeah, we could go anywhere.
I'd be heartbroken if they move it from Indy. I'm happy that we at least have next year set in stone, but there keeps being these rumblings, and I don't want to get on a plane. I mean, I think
No,
here's perfect.
Yeah,
Here's
imagine
why I
it-
don't
We
think,
park the car and we never move it again. You
Here's
know?
why I don't think that they're going to change it, because logistically,
It's put here for a reason.
it's put here for a reason. A, you're in the middle of the country.
Yes.
I think there's like 15 or 18 teams that can drive here. Right.
But more importantly is the medical stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
You don't have to go far to get to. Think
They
about
can handle it all.
They want to move to L.A. There's you can't get within 1,000 yards of that stadium
No.
for anything.
They'd be
With
busting
the
guys
car,
all over
yeah,
the place.
Everything's Vegas.
Vegas is the same way.
Vegas is the same way. There's nothing attached to Allegiant around it because it's across the freaking freeway.
Yeah, it
You
was
know what I'm
built.
saying?
It was built out into the desert. They're
Yeah.
expanding outwards now.
Exactly.
They could build a new hospital right next to the stadium.
Yeah.
but they haven't done so yet.
Right.
They haven't done so, and you still have all of the casinos own those lot lands.
Just imagine that ridiculous situation with all these young men. And I'm not saying that guys would go out and be tempted, but the temptation would be there.
It's tough if
It
you
would
walk
happen
in the
more than
lobby and there's a
zero.
full-on casino, nightclub, shows right there. Because what hotel are you going to put them at?
Right.
Where hotel are you going to put them at?
Because
Right.
if you're putting them all the way out at Red Rock, where are you going to? Where are you going
Now
to?
you gotta bus them in.
Now you got to bus them into the city. That's
Just
another
to
40
pull
minutes.
back the curtain on this. So for NFL teams, you're not allowed to stay in a hotel that has gambling in the lobby.
Yeah.
Like when we go to
This is an NFL event. I
Yeah.
would assume it's the same thing.
when we go to Vegas, we stay in a hotel off the strip that does not have any gambling in it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's few and far between that
Yeah.
close to the
Good
stadium.
luck finding that.
Yeah, exactly.
Thus, it's not convenient. Right,
Yeah, exactly. Or you're putting the guys like the Courtyard Marriott across the street from the stadium, right? And how are you going to have 329 guys in a Courtyard Marriott, right? And it's a more exposed hotel. You can't warden it off or anything. So that's the other thing. I mean, I did 3 Raiders games this year, right? You know, our game, of course, we stay there. But then when I did the 2, even trying to find a hotel, like you're competing with other events as well.
all the time.
Like think about this time of year. You know, people are getting ready for March Madness, right? So you have an influx of people that are planning on coming out there. Now you throw the combine right before it or around it. It becomes a logistical nightmare for those other locations.
And I've heard like Dallas has put in for it. It's kind of
There's nothing in Frisco.
It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing there. AT&T Stadium, like they built the city
on an
around
island.
the stadium. You know what I'm saying? And
It's an island.
so to get to a hospital system, you got to drive 20, 30 minutes. And then who's the one that's going to be able to stop what they're doing and dedicate this? Like this hospital system was built
It's an all-day event.
because they know what March is, and we can have 320 guys in, and we can move them. They have the line. Like I said, the lines are permanently in the ground.
Yeah.
You follow your track, and you stop at each room along the way. So they have a system in place. And I get it. Hey, you wanted to move the draft from New York because you want to.
And that's been a
big
success.
bump. That's been great.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
a draft is completely different than this combine, where it's
Absolutely.
metrics,
Medical.
time.
At the
and
end of the
intimate
day,
time, yeah.
it's still an event to judge the performance of players and to get the medical information.
Yeah.
It's not a made-for-TV event.
No, it's
They've
not.
turned it into that.
They've converted a lot of things, but it's retrofit.
But it wouldn't be any different at LA's stadium, or I mean, the coverage would look the same on NFL Network.
Right.
They're still running 40s or doing verticals. I mean, it's not like it'd be that much better. And what's
Yeah.
cool about this city is, you mentioned how you're competing. Well, there's a lot of conventions here, but this convention center is like a mile long. You don't even know it.
It's a
you know, like there's
tremendous-sized
that
one.
huge truck one comes in right after us. I'm sure there's a convention right after that. I mean, the combine's probably not even their like biggest event.
No.
But they can handle it like nothing.
Yeah, well, and also to go back to Vegas, right? Mandalay Bay Convention Center is the closest convention center to it, and it's still detached, and it's connected around 3 casino hotels. And so now to get those guys in, like there's no other place where a convention center is literally right next to the stadium.
I was going to say, is there any like that?
There's
right,
none. There's none. There's none. And Vegas, like you said, it's across a freaking freeway. There's no tunnel that goes from Mandalay Bay Convention Center to Allegiant Stadium.
That we know of.
That we know of. Yeah, that's true. That's true. It is Vegas.
Someone might be digging one of these weeks. But
Yeah. Well, but then they got they had to retrofit for the F1. You know what I'm saying? Like all the stuff that they broke up to make that happen. So it doesn't make sense. And like you said, SoFi being in Inglewood, like the hospital system, the closest one is USC. And that's still like 20 minutes. And that could be an hour depending on traffic in
would
LA.
be bad, yeah.
God forbid you have to get on the 405, for that one. And then like you said, Dallas, everything's so spread out. Frisco's not even Dallas.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You're in between Fort Worth and Dallas.
Yeah. You're in a no man's land. So it's like to find a hospital system that can afford that and have the time and space. And like you said, that's a lot
Get
more
the players back
travel
and forth easily.
And now you run the risk. And here's liability, just basic insurance, right? Liability insurance. The more I got to move guys in cars versus them walking, because they walk everywhere here.
Sure.
The more risk you have for accidents,
One car accident,
delays,
right.
And it messes up. We talk about the MRI machine messing things up. Imagine a freeway getting shut down from a 3-lane accident.
Yeah.
It's just a nightmare. This is the only one where it's truly walkable of all of the cities that we've been in. Like you couldn't do it in Pittsburgh.
No.
Right?
No.
You couldn't do it at any open-air stadiums. Cut those out.
Right.
Minnesota
It's
is
downtown.
close.
Yeah.
But
I don't know
I don't
where
know
the
where
nearest hospital is.
I don't know where the nearest hospital is. I don't know where the convention center is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
And I think they want it in a bigger town than that if they move it.
Yeah,
Vegas
if you're
or
gonna
LA.
move
Well,
it,
even
right,
when I was in
exactly.
Minneapolis for the Super Bowl a few years
Yeah.
ago, the team hotels and all the media stuff was at the Mall of America.
yeah. See?
I went downtown one night, for the opening night media stuff, and everything else was out at the team hotels. We just went to the Mall of America, and the Eagles were on one end and the Patriots were on the other, and I think that's who it was. But
Well,
Not to mention, I mean, like you went through this, but I mean, it's such a stressful time for the players here.
Yeah.
They would hate
adding
it
to
even
it.
more. You're at him, and then they got to perform in the last day after hardly sleeping or not knowing their roommate or
You're
being
gonna add
dragged around all
hours
the time.
Hours
right,
of bus
right.
rides back and forth.
Can we make it a little easier on the players?
Yeah, make it.
Right.
I mean, and this is about as easy as it's going to get because you walk
Yeah,
everywhere. You meet downstairs, you have your breakfast, and then you walk in line, to
little
everywhere,
ducklings,
like
right.
little ducklings. And the only
Right.
time you really have to move somewhere is to the hospital.
Yeah.
And that's not that far.
Mhm.
It's less than a 5-minute drive. And then
Anywhere else
yeah.
would be harder.
Anywhere else is tremendously harder, and now you're involving multiple car rides
Mm-hmm.
and shuttling of guys.
Adds for room for error. And right.
Yeah, we have 329. You got to move. I'm just saying that
Of
that's
large
not
men.
easy. Of large men, that
Right.
that's not easy. And like I said, it's easy to just walk these guys down the hallway. They're right down
Mhm.
there. And I'm saying there. I forget where. A couple of things
Right down
are
that
on
way.
camera. Down yonder. You just walk, and then all the meetings are here. Like NFLPA's right across from us. The NFL team meeting is there, where you meet with Troy, and you move in the stadium. Like I said, short little walk underneath, and you're right there in the stadium where they do a lot of the height, weight measurement stuff. That's not done at the hospital. That's done there, and then you move to the field for field work. It's within a 7-block circumference, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even think about putting, the liability and putting people in cars and accidents and
Yeah.
things like that. But, I mean, I'm kind of making light of it. But what if it's like, there's 25 offensive linemen that aren't in this draft anymore because they got in a car wreck or something terrible. Like,
Yeah.
oh, geez.
Yeah,
what are we
which can
doing
happen.
here?
Because, think about Super Bowl. When we were down in Dallas, like the first day after that snow,
Nasty.
it was ridiculous. I mean, we almost tipped over in our bus, and after that, I was like, I'm driving. I'm not taking this team bus anymore.
Don't
Like,
trust it, yeah.
it is ridiculous. And now you're putting players out on the road with with cars because you don't trust that. And God forbid, let's just face it, a freak snowstorm could happen in Dallas this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
just snowed a couple
They just
days
had one
ago.
a couple weeks
yeah,
ago,
you know what I'm saying? So I'm
Yeah.
like,
And they don't know how to
yeah,
handle it, right.
you can't handle that. And now everything's outside exposed. This is all interior, like you said. If snow shuts down, this doesn't shut down. We can still do everything here. We're still going to be in here. We'll be walking and we'll be having runny noses the whole week, but we'll be on air. You know what I'm saying? And we're able to walk indoors. So yeah, it just makes no sense to move it.
It's a perfect
personally.
spot.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting event with all the players. We'll get to see the players on the field tomorrow. We'll get to start to see some of those workouts and we'll start to get some of the measurements coming in on these guys, and that's going to be a big part of this for example, for a guy like Will Campbell.
Yeah.
The offensive tackle out of offensive. I'm going to say he's an offensive lineman out of LSU.
A lineman at LSU. Him, Emory Jones as well.
Yeah.
Like this is going to matter for them because they have to prove those type of things. And I think we go to all positions. Everybody there's a number of guys. Like we talked about the injuries to the quarterback position. If you're healthy enough to play, this is a chance to get a step up on your competition and put your first foot forward and give a great introduction if you can, because you can beat the field out if you can perform out here.
Yeah, no question. I mean, there's so many measurements and things like with Campbell. I mean, does he have 33-inch arms, or are we a little short?
Yeah,
or,
we're 32 and 5/8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a strong opinion, but I know some teams 33 is fine. Some of them want 34.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a preference on what you're asked to do of the offensive lineman,
How much
right?
reach block?
Yeah, because if I'm putting you on the outside edge by yourself a lot, I'm
Right.
not giving you chips. I don't go in a lot of 2 tight end sets, and you're on the blind side. I need longer arms.
I need length, right?
Yeah, I need length because that distance, those extra 2 inches, is the difference between you setting the edge at 7 and him coming across. Setting the edge at 7 and then making him run the hump to 9, or if you're cutting it off at 5.5, now he's at 7. That's the quarterback drop.
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting him right in his lap. That length will matter just for carrying
People
a guy.
would think, why would an inch arm length matter with that? It does.
It does. It
It
does.
does, right.
And over space, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the thing you have to think. I mean, now we're getting to the mathematics of it, right?
Mhm.
But those trajectory angles change based off of if a guy's an inch further out. And also, if you have that, if I'm a guy that doesn't like contact, now I'll move down another 6 inches. That matters.
Oh, a ton.
That matters.
A ton.
I mean, you're talking about a difference between an inch is a sack and a pressure.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Like even on the other side of the ball, I was listening to a really good analysis of Mason Graham today that they were breaking down his tape, and I guess Pro Football Focus has him missing like only 3 or 4 tackles. But they were talking about because of his short arms, he didn't even get his his arm on the guy. You know, the back goes right by him, where Chris Jones would have at least got something on him.
That doesn't necessarily count as a missed
it's
tackle.
It's not a missed tackle because he didn't get
there.
there.
He didn't touch the dude.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, just because he has these stumpy kind of arms.
It's like a shortstop talking about, well, he doesn't make any errors. Yeah, but he doesn't have any range.
He doesn't have any range.
Yeah,
right.
He didn't get to,
it's not Ozzie
this guy
Smith
gets
out there,
this
right.
guy gets to way more balls. Yeah, he might make some more errors, but he's got way better range.
Yeah, there's a lot more
exactly.
hits. Yeah.
Well, we talk like DeAndre Hopkins, the catch radius, right? I mean, we wouldn't be arguing about this. Like, if you have a huge catch radius as a receiver, like, that's where arm length comes in. A 50-50 ball becomes a 70-30 ball easily because if you
his
got
hands
2
are
more
this
inches,
big and right,
his arm length and his vertical matters, you know. And so the same thing matters for linemen. I mean, guards, I don't really care. You're in a phone booth. Center,
as long as it's not obscene. You know,
yeah, it's not obscene. Like, you don't have 29-inch arms, right? You're not coming out as T-Rex. You know what I'm saying? Scott Paxson. Even though I love it, his nickname was T-Rex. But center, it's negligible for the snap hand and the offhand. It doesn't really matter. But tackles, offside, it does matter.
And certainly edge rushers as well. I mean, if I can one arm,
long arm stab is a lot longer. Yeah,
a lot longer.
Well, guys, that's going to do it for our coverage today. We will be back again tomorrow. Same schedule, 9 to 5. Same group coming back. We got Wes Euler. You got Rob King. We got Max Starks. We got Matt Williamson, myself, Dale Lolley. Of course, we'll also have Jerry Dulac on. We want to thank CJ back in studio for keeping us on the air this entire time. We want to thank Tyler Rittmeyer for making sure our video gets out there. Check that out on YouTube. But, well, for the guys here, I am Dale Lolley, and we thank you for listening to our ongoing live coverage from the NFL Scouting Combine here on Steelers Nation Radio and Fox Sports Pittsburgh.
Steelers football happens here. The Pittsburgh Steelers Audio Network.